Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Mormon Stories podcast. I'm your host, John DeLynn. It is December 2nd, 2025. And today we have in studio someone who was at the center of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Mormon Church's attempts at changing people's sexuality from homosexual, as they used to call it, to heterosexual. You could also refer to this as the conversion therapy or the reparative therapy movement. And of course, I did my dissertation on this topic. We've had several people interviewed over the years on Mormon Stories that have alluded to it, but I'm not sure I've ever interviewed someone who was as sort of central and as early and as involved in the Mormon Church's efforts. We're talking Nicolosi, we're talking Evergreen, we're talking those early, let's say 80s, 90s, 2000s years of helping gay men go straight or pray the gay away. And I say that in quotes because we all know now, not only was it not effective, but it was extremely damaging to those who participated. So today we're going to be walking through the history or a history of the Mormon Church's involvement in conversion or reparative therapy with gay men. And our guest in studio is Appio Hunter. Hey, Appio.
Hey, John.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, this is so brave and so generous of you to be willing to come on and tell your story.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's time now. I've been sitting quiet for a while, and I figure, now's the time to finally get it out there and share the whole story.
Yeah. And I should also mention, for those of you who have recently watched the Heather Gay series on Peacock called Surviving Mormonism, part one of her series is with Dave Matheson, who was sort of the Mormon Church's leader in encouraging and administering conversion or reparative therapy for a couple decades. Well, Heather interviews Dave Matheson in part one, and that's also going to be tightly interwoven. Dave Matheson's work, Journey into Manhood, that sort of thing, is very much tied to the background of what you're going to be sharing. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't work directly with David Matheson, we did meet a couple of times when planning some Evergreen conferences, but that's something further down in the story for sure.
Okay. So hold on to your hats. This is going to be a really important piece of Mormon history. And to help guide us through that is my wonderful co-host as well, Margie DeLynn. Hey, Margie.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm delighted.
All right, Appio, is there anything you want to say sort of as an intro before we dive into your story, or do you just want to dive right in?
We can just dive right in. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
So where does your Mormon story begin?
So my Mormon story actually begins in Southern California. That's where I was born. I was born in Torrance, California. And we lived down there. My dad at the time was studying at Long Beach State to get a CPA license. And so one of my siblings and I were both born down there. And then we moved to Utah when I was about 3 years old or so.
So really quickly, your parents, let's talk about their backgrounds, their nationalities, and their, let's say legacy within the church.
Sure. Yeah. So on my dad's side of the family, the legacy within the church goes back to Joseph Smith's day, actually. So my great-great-grandfather was ordained a bishop by Joseph Smith himself. And then later on, when the pioneers all came out to Utah, he was made the presiding bishop of the church under Brigham Young.
What's his name?
Edward Hunter.
Okay.
And he was in that particular capacity, if memory serves, about 30 to 34 years, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so deep roots on my dad's side.
And your dad grew up where?
He grew up in Eastern Idaho.
What town?
So let's see here. He was born in 1942.
Town, sorry.
So let's see. Rigby, Idaho Falls, Rexburg.
Got it. So where BYU, Idaho is basically.
Yeah, exactly.
That area. Okay. So that's your dad, multi-generational pioneer Mormon roots, Hunter, last name.
Yep.
And your mom?
My mom was born in Brazil. And she was actually very, very early convert to the church down in Brazil. In fact, she's like in the 150s range. So there were fewer than 200 members of the church when she was actually baptized back in the 1950s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So deep roots on both sides of the family as far as the pioneer heritage and everything. Yeah.
How'd she meet your dad?
So they knew each other when my dad was serving a mission down in Brazil. They had just met, but they really there's nothing there, obviously, when he's on his mission. But then my mom actually came up, but this was back in like the mid 60s when it was very easy for people to be able to immigrate to the US. And she came here. She was working as a nanny in New Jersey. My dad went out to visit her. They went to the World's Fair and everything. And then apparently they hit it off very well because months later, they were actually married and married in the Idaho Falls Temple.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then they ended up in California, which is where you and your brother were born.
Correct.
You said? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How many total siblings?
Just me and him.
Okay.
Just the two of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened now we got that background. Who's older, you or your brother?
I'm the youngest.
Okay. So what happens next in your Mormon story?
So when we get here, we were living when we first arrived in Utah, we were, I want to say, in Clearfield, and we were there for a little bit. Then we moved to Layton, and that's where I started going to school. I went to Whitesides Elementary in Layton, and just remember going to, let me think here, kindergarten and first grade. And really loved it. Great neighborhood. Really enjoyed it tremendously. Had very happy memories from the time that we were in Layton. And then right around the time of second grade, we ended up moving. We moved a lot between the time I was born and the time that I was 10, we tended to move around a lot. And so after first grade, we moved to, after second grade, we moved to Sugar House in Salt Lake City. And we were there for a few years. I attended third and fourth grade in Salt Lake City. And then finally we had a house built out in Sandy, and we moved down to Sandy when I turned 10. And that's where I finished going to school, elementary school, junior high, high school. And
You're a Sandy boy.
I'm very much a Sandy boy, yes.
Okay. So you write in your outline that you maybe started noticing you were different than some of the other boys at a young age. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I'd say probably around 4 or 5. I just noticed that I was very, very sensitive. I was always very aware of just the emotions of just people all around me. I could sense how they were feeling, toward me or about me. It was just always something that was there and never ever present. Then I also noticed that, yes, I was there. There were boys within my school that I thought were very cute or whatever, and I was kind of attracted to. Of course, at that age, you just don't have that particular language. Oftentimes, culturally, especially at the time that I was growing up here in Utah, it was always just like about the girls, the boys, and it's still that way, of course. But for me, I was always, the girls were they were my friends. I would love to hang out with them. Had no problems playing dolls with them and so forth. And just the typical expectations of being involved in sports and so forth never really interested me at all. Some sports maybe, but not really. It just really wasn't my thing. Yeah.
Okay. And then how did that sort of progress as you went into adolescence?
So I'd say that, I actually hit puberty relatively early. I was around 13. And that's when I started to really notice that, yes, I was attracted to other men. And
around what year is this?
Oh, let me think here.
13.
Around 1980-ish,
okay.
81-ish.
Got it.
Yeah, 1981.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's when I started to really notice. And I was just kind of very aware of that I was definitely attracted to other men. Again, that's also around a time when, you know, the expectations and other boys are always talking about the girls and so forth. I just knew that there was something very different about me, about how I felt. I was starting to question, why don't I feel this attraction to girls? Again, not a lot of words around it, but just a very, very heightened awareness of there's something very different about me. So, yeah.
I'm curious, were there messages that you absorbed about what it means to be gay, or, you know, with friends? What were your impressions about, you know, what it would mean to be gay in Utah?
There's a lot of messaging around it, actually. That messaging was very much that, you know, there back then, you know, a lot of words used like sissy and so forth were kind of normal to be used. A lot of disparaging remarks about boys who like boys. And so I was, again, aware that, okay, this is something which does not fit into the community. This is something that does not, you know, that obviously I will get into trouble if I express myself openly about this. So I really learned how to mask my behavior. I became a chameleon at a very, very early age. And it wasn't just within the community or at church, but also just within the home itself. You know, what's interesting is that my home life was very traditionally Mormon, and at the same time, not so much. So, for instance, my mom, she was very, very extreme as far as, you know, her interpretations of behaviors and doctrine and so forth. And yet she was fiercely independent. She did not want to fit herself into the mold of the traditional Mormon wife. She's like, no, I'm not going to be silenced. No, I'm not going to, you know, stay at home and be the traditional Mormon wife who raises the family and so forth. She worked out of necessity, honestly, but she was also not somebody who felt like as a woman, she should be silenced. So she was very fiercely independent in that particular way. And yet also was very, I would say that she lived by the spirit of the laws, not so much the letter of the law, but sometimes her interpretation of the spirit of the law could be very extreme, you could say. So there's that element as well. And then, of course, just, you know, you hear in the Sunday school lessons and everything else, there was just a lot of messaging that just was very negative as far as, if you don't fit this particular mold, there's something very wrong with you. And so therefore, you know, some bad things might happen. Yeah.
This 80s time period was sort of drenched in Spence W. Kimball's Miracle of Forgiveness kind of rhetoric.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of that rhetoric in your household? And do you remember any of that rhetoric at church? Specifically, sort of the being gay is an abomination, being gay is caused by masturbation, that sort of thing.
So yes, there was actually that rhetoric in both at home and at church. More so at church than at home, but my mom actually did read the Miracle of Forgiveness. Her big thing was the sins of omission versus the sins of commission. And so there was the messaging was just everywhere. My mom usually would cite certain things, but nothing about being gay or homosexuality being, you know, the sin next to murder or anything like that. No, that was almost entirely at church that I heard that particular messaging. Okay. Yeah.
I have a quick question around your early years. I noticed in your outline you kind of described yourself as also highly sensitive.
Yeah.
And I am curious about, you know, do you remember when masking, you kind of talk about masking, when that began, and if you felt in your home, if you were able to kind of be who you were in the highly sensitive way, or did the masking start so early due to your perceiving it not welcome, you know, at home, church, and kind of just trying to kind of delve into your highly sensitive, young self?
Sure. Actually, that's a really good question. I would say at home, I was definitely able to be my full self. Outside is when I would actually start masking. And I would say I'd started masking pretty early, actually. I just, again, being very perceptive and being very sensitive, I realized that I could not be a very emotional person. The expectation was that boys don't cry, boys don't do these things. So I had to learn how to really kind of suck it up and kind of keep it inside. But at home, I was perfectly fine being able to just be my full emotive self and very sensitive self as well. However, I would say probably around the time that I was around 13, or between 10 and 13 is when I started to have to start masking at home as well. So I wasn't as much of my real authentic self while I was at home right around that time, because that's also when, Miracle of Forgiveness came out. And, my mom would just, she never really said anything disparaging about homosexuality or anything like that. But there was just, again, that sense that this is something that probably should not be brought up while I'm at home either. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Miracle of Forgiveness dates back to the 70s and 60s, but I think you mean that's when the Miracle of Forgiveness became influential in your home, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your outline that your dad was distant, and I think what you mean by that is he was probably just working all the time.
Yep.
Like whether work or callings in church.
No, it was more work.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, the dynamic between my parents is very interesting because my mom was definitely the more dominant personality there. And I think that, now that I look back and I'm able to kind of look at it from a broader lens and not through the lens of, being hurt or feeling victimized or anything like that, I can see that it was more along the lines of, there was just a very, very, my mom had a very, very strong personality, let's say. And so I really think that my dad spent a lot of time at work just to avoid being at home. Plus there's another element where I began being very highly sensitive, very, very emotional and so forth. I wanted to spend time with my dad. And he was somebody who checked off all of the things that were expected of him. So he went down the checklist. He served his mission. He had his callings. He did all of these things, but I don't think it's really kind of in his nature to be the father figure or anything like that. So really, I think there was that dynamic of him just wanting to avoid the responsibilities. Now, obviously, I'm grateful. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him going down that checklist. But I think that was just kind of very much his just going through the motions more than really truly feeling like this is something that he wanted to do.
Got it.
Do you feel like part of that was kind of going down the checklist and ending up in this place of a family, but feeling ill-equipped to maybe be in the role of a dad? There's a way of living where you're checking off the boxes, not fully maybe understanding or knowing what you're choosing. And so is that kind of what you sense, is just he ended up in a role where he just did not have the resources or the, personality even to really, show up in a father role? Is that kind of how you think about it?
Yeah, I think that's a great description of how he showed up and how he was. He just wasn't prepared for it. He didn't realize the commitment that it takes to step into that role, for sure.
And then you also mentioned in your outline some childhood abuse around age 10.
Yes, exactly. Right around the time that, we moved to Sandy, there was some abuse that did take place. No, not a lot, not frequent, but nevertheless, something that one of those early memories that I kind of stuffed inside and kind of kept compartmentalized. And then, later on, as I was going through actual therapy to kind of uncover all of the things that I'd kept inside, that's when it started to emerge, that those memories emerged. And I realized it's like, oh, this took place. And at the time, I didn't even think anything of it. For me, it was just like, oh, this is just part of, family life. So,
and I mentioned, I'm highlighting the abuse and the quote distant father from your outline because, they tie into the disproven theories that we're going to be discussing in a bit.
Yeah.
That Nicolosi, Dean Bird, Dave Matheson, and others, Evergreen, would have perpetuated, that the cause of being gay, either by Spencer W. Kimmel's account, might have been masturbation, or by Dean Bird, Joseph Nicolosi, and Dave Matheson, the cause of being gay would have been a distant father, quote, an overbearing, close quote, mother, and some history of abuse. So if you would, and again, abuse is so prevalent in Mormonism, we'd all be gay, right?
Right.
But and a distant father, that's just a patriarchy where men are working all the time and serving in church. They're just not going to be around. But again, your brother'd be gay if,
exactly.
Science or social science has disproven that abuse and or quote distant fathers, close quote, cause homosexuality, not even mentioning masturbation. But you would have been potentially primed for those types of false theories because of your background. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get all to that later, but I just want to make sure we covered it.
For sure.
Okay. So I just have a quick question, and I realize you're kind of in developing years here, 10 to kind of early teens. But do you remember being conscious that you're holding quite a lot to yourself, like secrets, things that you feel are different about you? Like, are you conscious of that at that age, or is it more of like a reaction and you're kind of in this unconscious mode of like, put it away, just and show up? It's an aspect of survival, I think. And so I'm just curious, as these things are now happening to you and you're experiencing, let's just say differentness, separateness in a way.
Sure.
Things that you feel for yourself, but might not be approved of, or people may see you differently.
Right.
In your early teen years, how does this feeling for you?
I actually had not really given it a lot of thought, but looking back on it, I would say that it was survival mode. I wasn't very conscious of what I was doing. I was just adapting to whatever situation. I just knew that my survival absolutely depended on me being able to adapt, for sure. Yeah.
Let's talk about your developing sense of spirituality alongside your religious experiences in terms of prayer, scripture reading, journal writing, and even participation in church and its activities, especially going into adolescence.
Yeah.
So many of the gay LGBT Mormons that I interviewed for my dissertation or surveyed talked about deep spiritual connections with Heavenly Father.
Yeah. I would fall into that category as well. And again, this is where my family dynamic was very odd, in that we were very deeply, very Mormon. And at the same time, things such as family prayer, family home evening, scripture study, journaling, all that stuff was not part of the home environment. My dad didn't really prioritize it all that much. My mom was more along the lines of, it's your connection with your connection with Heavenly Father, with God, that is the most important thing. The rest of it is just more like going through the motions. It's really your connection. And so that's what I gravitated to. For me, it was very much the deep spiritual connection with the divine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's go into the youth program in high school.
Sure. So we went through a period of time, just to kind of give you some context and backing up just a little bit. Around the time that we moved from Sugar House out to Sandy, we were inactive within the church. But that's also the time that my brother was going to be, he was turning 12. He was going to be ordained, into the priesthood. And so my parents went through the process of getting reactivated in the church and so forth. During that time that they were inactive as well, my dad got involved with some folks who were very, let's just say, kind of like an extremist offshoot of the church. And so during that whole process of getting reactivated and so forth, we went through the whole repentance process and so forth, but he never really let go of those contacts that he had.
These are Mormon fundamentalists?
Not so much polygamous fundamentalists, although there is that in my family, of course, due to the history. But
I mean, doctrinal fundamentalists.
Exactly. More doctrinal fundamentalists.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So your dad got tied up with them. Kind of the Ogden crowd, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So this
is the Manti crowd.
Not so much. I didn't get a lot of details from it, except that I know that this is somebody that my dad had actually known for a good chunk of his life. They met, I think, around when he was in high school in Idaho Falls, and had just been kind of back and forth in and out of my dad's life. He had been down in Southern California when we were down there. Then again, he just seemed to follow my dad around, is what I remember.
Okay.
And that kind of gives some context as far as, that particular period where he went inactive, was more involved with this other person. And then, when it was time that, I think it was my mom who was really pressuring my dad. It's like, hey, you know what? It's time. The kids really need to be able to go to the priesthood and hold the priesthood and so forth. So we started going back to church again. My brother, of course, received the priesthood when he was 12. And then 2 years later, I did as well. And that's where I was very much involved with a lot of the youth programs. Went to Scouts, really enjoyed it. Everything that was available for the youth, I enjoyed the social aspect of it. I was there for the social aspect of it, the friendships, not so much all the masculine required activities. I loved camping. Actually, that's one thing I did like. Really loved spending time up in the mountains and camping. That's something that my dad actually did do well, was introducing us to nature, sending us, those camping trips going up were fantastic. So anytime there was a scout camping trip, yep, I was on board. No problem.
Yeah.
The sports activities and so forth, yes, I was there, but trying to basically find whatever role I could fill that allowed me to be part of the group and not call too much attention to myself, and that I could at the very least do halfway decently. So for instance, football, I could either be a really good running back or a really good wide receiver. One of those two, because it didn't require me to be clobbered by anybody, tackled.
Yeah.
I could, run very fast, and I was very, I could very nimbly avoid people. So those were two things that I felt like I did well, at least well enough to avoid getting too much attention called to.
Was this Alta?
Actually, yes. So I did go to Alta High School. Went to Eastmont Junior High and then Alta High School. And it was during this time, that all that was happening.
And how about dating?
So I was very grateful for the church's prohibition on dating until you're 16. I loved that.
Little simplifier.
It was a big simplifier. And it was also simplifier as I got older. And it's just like, oh, well, you have to be chaste. You have to be, respect women and everything like that. I'm like, I have no problem in that department. Respecting women, got that down. No problem. But, the high school dances, again, were great. I would ask girls out in order to, fit in with the crowd. I would ask, I think I went to just about every single school dance that there was. And I had a couple of girlfriends during that time. We actually mostly even though we've kind of lost touch with each other over the years, we remained friends over the years as well. So my girlfriends were, I think at least one of them was like, why don't you ever want to kiss me? Why don't you ever want to, and my fallback was always, well, I just believe very strongly in being chaste until marriage.
Mhm.
When did you come out to yourself as gay? Do you remember an age?
Yeah, I would probably say 13, 14.
Okay. So when you're hiding behind the law of chastity,
Mhm.
that's sort of conscious. You're thinking, I know I'm gay, but I need to present straight and date women. So you were consciously hiding behind the law of chastity, but knowing that really you were gay.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Like protective, using it almost as a protective
Oh, yeah.
strategy.
It was a shield.
Mm.
Definitely a shield for sure.
I
And
see.
did you come out to anyone at 13 besides yourself?
No.
Uh-huh.
I actually didn't come out to anybody until I was, I want to say 17.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's when I actually came out.
And when you came out to yourself, were you hoping it could go away? Were you hoping you could change it?
Mhm.
Or were you at
Good
peace with it
question.
Yeah.
and accepting of it, especially in light of the Spencer W. Kimball / gay doctrines you'd been taught as a Mormon?
Right. I think I did a fairly good job of being able to kind of, I think personally, I've always been a bit of a cafeteria Mormon. It's like I pick what works
Mm.
and just discard the rest. Although the messaging was still there and I was very aware of the messaging. So from a societal standpoint, being able to fit in standpoint, I was conscious of it, but at the same time, unconscious of how I was adapting, how I was a constant chameleon in order to just blend in wherever I was. But as far as would you mind repeating the question again?
So you
I'm
weren't
sorry.
stewing in self-shame,
Yeah.
religious self-shame. You as a cafeteria Mormon,
Mhm.
you must, maybe you concluded that God didn't really mind that you were gay.
Mhm.
So that part of Mormonism you weren't going to buy into?
No, exactly. I didn't really buy into it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my question too, because it sounds like there was an emphasis, at least from your mom,
Mhm.
about a personal connection with God, right? With Heavenly
Yes.
Father. So I was going to ask you about that. So
Yeah.
what was your experience then of like a Heavenly Father
Mhm.
at that time? Like
Yeah.
how would you describe your relationship?
It's interesting because I never, even until now, I never thought of God, of Heavenly Father, as being this angry, vengeful being, who's very insecure, people not obeying him or whatever. I never felt that way. Even at that age, I felt like it was this beautiful, loving, unconditionally accepting relationship. It was
Wow.
just there.
Yeah.
On a personal level.
You kind of dodged a bullet
I-
in that regard.
I did, even though I still absorbed a lot of the doctrinal shame and everything like that. On a personal level, it was always very, very deep.
Yeah, that's
spiritual
powerful.
connection. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And likely a bit confusing because you're having this internal experience of a relationship with Heavenly Father that feels warm, right?
Yeah.
Unconditional.
Yeah.
And yet you go to church or you're with friends and there's shame messaging still that you're absorbing.
Yes.
So it's both.
Yeah, it was both. It was very much both.
And what were your fears around coming out to your parents, your mom and your dad, prior to age 17?
Oh, it's interesting because I wanted to. I really, really wanted to, but I'm like, it doesn't feel right. It just never really felt right for me to be able to come out. So I was accepting of myself, and simultaneously there's like this almost dual personality going on inside of me. The one who hated myself, who was shamed and wanted to just basically crawl into a hole somewhere and die. And the other part of me that was like, this is me. This is me. I want to be able to express me as I am, fully and beautifully, if you will. So what really kind of got me to finally come out, and it was only to my mom, because again, my dad was never really around, was just somebody who I had met that I was seeing at the time.
A man?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but let's back up.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to ask you about any experimentation with other gay men.
Yes.
When and how did that? I'm not asking for like lurid details, but like
Right.
how did you do that as a Mormon kid in Sandy, Utah?
Sure. So back at the time, the only place where you could really go were, either restrooms or, public restrooms or, at the, community center. Like, for instance, where you'd go to the swimming pool or anything like that. Every once in a while, there might be somebody that's like, oh, okay, this person is interested in me, whatever. And so there might be, experiences there, but usually it's just, you always had to do it in hiding. You always had to find a place where, other people that were like you could kind of congregate so that you can very quietly and, secretly experiment, if you will.
Wow.
And public. Those are both public places.
Yeah.
So that's stressful.
Oh, yeah. It was.
Yeah.
I mean, I look back now, I'm like, oh my gosh, I took so many crazy risks. But it was the only way I felt like I could really express myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely
you can't
not
go
on
dates because people would find out, they'd see you together, and you can't even develop friendships with gay teens. Yeah. Again, people might suspect. Wow, so that drives you into, let's just say, romantic or sexual experimentation in bathrooms and parks or truck stops or whatever, because that's
you use what's available.
That's the only place you can go where you can hide and maybe not be found out.
Yeah.
Oh, so unhealthy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it really developed a very unhealthy, not just coping mechanisms, but unhealthy relationships as I moved into adulthood as well.
Because my son's helping me realize this, that the prohibition adds to the pleasure. Because if it's forbidden and you have to hide, but then you're doing it in a place like I don't mean doing it, but you're like experimenting in a place where you could get caught, that all amplifies the dopamine and the serotonin and the oxytocin.
Yes.
That makes it even more pleasurable. And that's just it's a real lethal and insidious formula, because if you were just dating a kid your age, it's weird because it's going to be a lot less alluring because you're not adding so much forbiddenness and risk to it. So in other words, they're driving you, the social mores and the religious mores are driving you to unhealthy, risky behavior because all of that makes it more attractive.
Yes.
That's awful.
And I look back at it now and I'm horrified. I'm genuinely horrified at my behavior at that time. It was risky. It was, I was putting so much on the line just to be able to express myself, to be able to feel appreciated.
That's right.
During all of this time, as through my childhood, through my adolescence, there was also this disconnect because, again, I had these two sides of me that I was trying to balance. I cannot love myself. I could just, even though I felt a very deep, beautiful, unconditional love from the divine, I couldn't see it within myself.
Okay.
And so that became a theme throughout my life until not long ago, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was always seeking validation, external validation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, one last observation about this situation where you are experiencing on some levels some freedom to be yourself, but in this environment where there's risk and a sense of emergency, almost like where you're heightened because it's public, like there are people around, is that it also separates you. It separates your sexual self from also just having an emotional, like a real emotional connection, having the two be able to be intertwined as well, where you get to feel seen, you get to feel safe, you get to feel, valued as you are, there's none of that for you in those situations, or
Yeah.
at least very little. They're not built for you to experience that for sure.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Very much. Very much.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way of being able to describe it, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for being willing to share this. So,
Yeah.
so you didn't, okay. So as you're graduating from high school, I guess back in the 80s, the typical pattern would have been for you to go to one of the BYUs for a year and then go on a mission.
Right.
And I'm also curious about if you did high school seminary, just to know to what extent you were being indoctrinated.
Right.
But talk about whether or not you were a seminary graduate, whether or not you were indoctrinated, and then how you thought about college and mission.
So this is another area where my family kind of diverged from the typical Mormon family, where my mom, when my brother was getting ready to go to high school, she was presented with this release document of, release for what? To be able to go to seminary. Because, here in Utah, high school students are released from school for an hour so they can go and attend, seminary during the day. And in Utah, culturally, seminary is just part of your high school curriculum. Obviously, outside of Utah, that's very, very different. But my mom read through the document. She's like, wait a second, I am releasing my son from school to go to religious instruction. That's what Sunday is for. That's what Sunday school is for. So no, I'm not going to have him go to seminary during school time, because school is for school. And my mom was very big on education. Even though she grew up in a very rural setting in Brazil, her mother, my grandmother, was very big on education. And so, all of her daughters were very articulate, very well read. And so, no, the focus was you go to school, not to seminary. So yeah, I never went to seminary. I didn't get that indoctrination.
Yeah.
Again, you kind of dodged a bullet there.
I did dodge a bullet, yes. Yeah. And then going on to
college and mission.
College.
Yeah.
So from there, I actually decided not to go to BYU like everybody else. It was a kind of almost expected. We did have a somewhat rebellious streak within my family, so I decided to go to the University of Utah instead. Right out of high school, I registered at the University of Utah, got accepted, went there for about a year and a half or so, and then I'm just like, this doesn't feel right for me at this time. So I stopped going to school for a period of time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was actually right around the time that I was introduced to conversion therapy.
Okay.
Or reparative therapy is what it was known as.
Yeah. So you did come out to your parents at age 17. Did you tell us how they received that?
How did that go?
Not well.
That? Okay.
Not well at all.
Both your dad and mom you came out to?
Actually, just my mom.
Okay.
My dad was just like, he loved me. I know that. He just didn't really care about being involved or knowing or anything like that. Had he known, had I come out to him, he would have been full on, priesthood, call you to repentance, the whole shebang. But no, instead it was with my mom. And that's another weird thing about my mom's dynamic, is that on one hand, she was very, very strict in her interpretation of the gospel, and at the same time, very accepting of people who were not in the gospel, but people who lived very different lives. She was working at UTA at the time, and there are a couple of LGBT employees that she had. She was very kind to. She would talk about them periodically, and not openly or all the time or anything, but I just knew that she had a couple of LGBT employees. And so I felt okay at that particular point. I'm like, I think it's going to go well for me to come out with my mom. So when I did, her reaction was not what I expected. It was, she went a little nuts, honestly. So
she went nuts in what way?
So she is like, yeah, no, you're not gay. You're just confused. You are, this is something that, you're being indoctrinated. Just basically all the typical things that a parent would typically say, especially a very religious parent. It's like, oh no, you're just confused. This is not really who you are.
Oh.
Also, the 80s would have been the AIDS crisis.
Correct.
So there would have been a lot of fear around on the part of your mom.
Very much. In fact, that was mentioned several times.
Yeah.
And I had actually, even though I was very, very young, I had actually done enough research on my own about AIDS and HIV and everything. I'm like, no, it's a result of very risky practices, and I'm not engaging in those practices. So I'm okay, and there's no health risk to me. But so then my mom, she shifted tactics from a health concern to more like societal acceptance concern. And it's not, and her message at that point was, it's not that I'm upset with you, and it's more like your society is just not going to accept you. I don't want there to be any doors closed to you as a result of you being openly gay.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about how you end up in reparative therapy, especially as a buffet Mormon, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Who believes God loves you unconditionally.
Yeah.
How do you end up in reparative therapy? Yeah.
That's like, now I think about it, it's kind of weird how that all unfolded. But basically, I was seeing another guy at the time. We'd been dating for maybe about 4 or 5 months, and just went through a very, very horrible, horrible breakup. I mean, it was the first time that I felt that devastating, the world is crashing in around me type of a feeling. And I was just so horrible, so depressed from that, that I actually asked for a blessing. And from actually a family member.
Okay.
And so when I received that blessing from that family member, I just remember feeling like a sense of peace falling over me. And it was like, okay, I'm going to be okay. I can move on with my life. The world is not coming to an end. And so for several days after that, because I was so distraught, I was emotionally incapacitated for several days. And so that's when my mom kind of used the opportunity to say, you know what? I know of somebody who might be able to actually help you. Obviously I see you're really, really upset. You're distraught. This has really been devastating. I know somebody who could possibly help you through this.
So kind of you're in
Yes.
a bit of a vulnerable spot, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was very vulnerable. So at that point,
and you mentioned having a spiritual experience.
Yeah. So when I was receiving that blessing, that's why I just felt that immense sense of peace. I felt like that connection that I had, that I always felt that I had with Heavenly Father was validated. It was like, you're okay. You're okay. I'm here for you. I stand by you. For me, it was a genuine feeling. And it was, again, a validating feeling of me as a whole, unbroken person. That's what it felt like to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell those emotions are running deep for you. And I'll just say again, in our research of surveying 1,612 current and former LGBT Mormons, something like 60% of them received some sort of divine affirmation that God accepted their sexuality.
Yeah.
So your story fits totally in line with that.
Yeah.
Which again, and I don't mean to be ham-fisted, drives me to the question of, if you now have received a deeply meaningful witness of God's unconditional love for you, that you feel touched by to this day. Why would you turn to reparative therapy?
That's where the vulnerability comes in. That's where
that's what I see.
It's social. It's got to
Yeah.
be social.
It is very social.
Yeah,
It's very, very social. Absolutely. So that's where now
I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry
because it's not funny.
It's not funny, but I too can actually laugh at it now. I really can, because I'm like, wow, there's some crazy stuff that actually happened. But yes, it was, it is. So one of my defense mechanisms is being able to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, humor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very human, and that's a big part of me. I'm always making jokes. Very, very flippant sense of humor, and yet, with that validation, I felt like, okay, maybe my mom has my best interest at heart. Again, her messaging up to that particular point was, I don't want there to be doors closed for you. I want you to be okay. I want you to be accepted by society. I accept you, even though I don't accept you, but I accept you. But let's do something here to kind of help you be accepted by society.
Got it. In a moment of vulnerability, what I kind of hear is that her fear and desire for you to be protected and safe in the world, it infiltrated you in that moment. Is that what you would say? Like it infiltrated you to a point of like, and particularly fear of pain and safety and differences and being different, which is what your lived experience in Utah has been up to this point. Like, who wouldn't want a reprieve from that?
And that's exactly what I wanted in that moment.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I wanted. Plus, that's also when I became consciously aware of this need to always adapt and please everybody else. That's when I started to kind of and again, it wasn't super aware, but it was starting to enter into the back of my mind that Oprah actually calls it like the disease to please. And that's kind of where I started to realize that, in order for me to be truly fit in, I need to please everybody else around me.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, being able to sacrifice. And that started through my entire adulthood, this pattern of, oh, you need somebody to climb up on your altar and be sacrificed? Sure. Happy to be that sacrificial lamb, if you will.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So that was the start of it.
A final connection that occurs in my mind that may or may not make sense. I don't think religions necessarily intentionally co-opt things like emotional or spiritual experiences, but whether or not it's intentional, you had this breakup, you're devastated, you're vulnerable, you don't know what else to do. You ask for a priesthood blessing because you're told that'll provide comfort. You have a deep spiritual and even authentic interaction with the divine, but how can you not associate that with the Mormon church, since it's a priesthood blessing within a Mormon context?
Absolutely.
That is the conduit for you having this emotional or spiritual experience.
Yes.
So it would be completely, and your mom who recommended it maybe, or was associated with it. So it would make all the sense in the world that you would say, okay, Mormon church, I just had this spiritual, deep connecting experience with God. What's the next step? And then the church, in a way, would sort of like play off of that authentic spiritual experience with God and say, well, the next step is LDS social services and reparative therapy.
Yep.
I don't mean to put that on your story, but that's how I'm connecting the dots as I listen to it.
I would say, no, you're not putting it on my story as so much as you are accurately connecting the dots. And that is kind of what went through my mind as well, is that, okay, this is the only point of reference that I have is the fact that this is the only church that I've known. There's the messaging that this is the only true church. So therefore, if it's the only true church and my entire family is involved with it, yes, I had cousins and so forth down in Brazil that were not Mormon, but nevertheless, my lived direct experience, particularly since, I didn't live that far away from Idaho and, knew that side of the family, the Mormon side of the family better, to be honest. That was just the whole thing. So that was the solution to me, was to go to the one true church and go through that process of being able to learn how to truly fit into society using the resources that were made available to me by the one true church.
Yeah. And there's also sort of this prodigal son / Saul on the road to Damascus / Alma the Younger narrative of like the lost soul that returns, right?
Yes.
And I think that's also can be a really tempting narrative that can lure people. So let's talk about LDS social services and reparative therapy if you want.
So after my mom said, I have somebody who can help you, we went down to LDS social services. It was out in somewhere, I know it's just like in the western part of Salt Lake City. And
like West Valley kind of area.
Actually not so much West Valley. It's just kind of like very close to like Welfare Square.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Western downtown.
Exactly. Western downtown.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
and by the way, there was a deep connection between Mormon bishops and LDS social services at the time.
Yes.
So it would be very likely that your mom would have gone to your Mormon bishop, to say, hey, my son's gay, what do I do? And then the bishop would say, hey, go to LDS, take him to LDS social services. They've got a therapist and a program that will fix your son. Yeah.
And there's another component to that with my mom, and that is she actually happens to be driving by church headquarters one day because she still worked, at the UTA close to downtown. And one day on lunch, she was driving past there. She just like got this urge to stop and talk to somebody. So she explained it to somebody at church headquarters. They're like, oh yeah, we definitely have something that can help you out. And then she spoke to our bishop at the time, saying, hey, this is what I did. And he was like all on board. He said, yes, absolutely. This is going to be the right direction to go.
Okay. So how was LDS social services?
Well, I got there, and the person that I met with, you could tell that he was a genuinely kind person. And very interested in listening to me. When I walked into the room, he just took like this deep breath, and he's like, wow, I can feel the Spirit accompanying you. And so, again, being somebody who at this particular point was aware that I couldn't love myself, but boy, oh boy, I can sure get love from everybody else. So to be the very first thing to come out of somebody's mouth is like, wow, I can really feel the Spirit, emanating from you. Validation number one. And then we talked a little about the overarching, he asked me some questions. I told him what had led to my emotional breakdown. And, I was completely honest and open, didn't try to hide anything. And then, after I, spilled the beans on everything, that's when he started the narrative, which, you alluded to earlier, John, about absent father, the mother who was always there, the one mother with a really, really strong personality, all of those things. I'm like, holy cow, this is me. This is my life.
It's almost like tarot cards or astrology. If they can come up with the narrative that you identify, it's like, wait, that's me, right? Even though it's a narrative that half or more of the church could identify with.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So it was very personalized. I internalized it immediately. I'm like, yep, this is what I need. This is how I'm going to be able to fit into society. This is how I'm going to be able to finally reconcile these two parts of me, bring them together and be a whole person. So that's what got me down the path.
And before we go into the treatment itself, just because I pursued my psychology PhD, even in the 80s, it would have been viewed as unethical to do conversion or reparative therapy.
Yes.
And so these therapists that the church would have recommended and or hired to LDS social services were offering treatments that would be condemned as unethical by their own licensure.
Yes.
Yeah, by their own licensure or ethics boards, whether it's the American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological Association, the American Marriage and Family Therapist Association, the American, all of them, social workers, they all condemned conversion or reparative therapy by this time.
Yes.
And yet it was being recommended to you as what God wants for you by therapists employed by the Mormon Church. I just want to give that context to then have you. Oh, go ahead, Margie.
Yeah.
I have a quick question about that.
Yeah.
So is this taking place mostly in Utah, or is this national?
Oh, it's national. In
It's
the 90s,
national?
we're in the 90s now, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. The Catholics have their own version. The evangelicals have their own version.
Yep.
The Jews have their own version, and Mormons have their own version. And they were all networked.
Yes.
So Jonah was Jews offering new approaches to homosexuality. And again, I forget I can't believe I'm forgetting what the evangelicals had, but each religious group had its own sort of franchise of conversion or reparative therapy, but they all worked with each other. They were all based on Nicolosi's teachings, Joseph Nicolosi, who was a non-LDS. I don't know if he's a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a medical doctor, or if he was just a charlatan, but he was viewed as the grandfather of conversion therapy in the United States.
I am kind of interested about his credentials, just as a way of.
I'll have to look.
Which is fine. But what I'm getting from this, just as context, is religion led though, like is reparative therapy
almost
kind
always
of a religious movement?
They're really
as opposed to
go ahead.
To my knowledge, I have never experienced anybody who has gone through conversion therapy that was not in a religious context. That's why oftentimes, people who are shocked that even exists, they refer to it as pray the gay away because of that religious connection that's there. To my knowledge, there are still people not officially affiliated with the church who do practice conversion therapy. It's no longer officially sponsored by the church, but there's like a tacit approval. But in evangelical circles, it's still very much a thing, and it is. They may not necessarily be licensed practitioners or licensed therapists, but they are very much into the whole evangelical narrative.
And Julie and I both just looked this up at the same time. Joseph Nicolosi was a clinical psychologist, and he would be involved at the American Psychological Association in these multi-decade debates over whether or not it was ethical, how it should be treated. He would have been involved in all sorts of clinical psychology studies.
Yes.
Along with Dean Bird from the Mormon Church, and eventually Dave Matheson and others, Evergreen International and the Mormon Church and others. That were all trying to do studies to prove that conversion or reparative therapy worked.
Yes.
And then to establish them as ethical recommended treatments on behalf of the APA, the American Psychological Association.
Exactly. And during the time that I was actually going through reparative therapy, and I'm going to call it what it was back then, even though, nowadays it's called conversion therapy, because obviously it doesn't sound quite as insidious.
Right.
But, I was very much aware of the debate that was going on with the APA and how there's this big debate about whether or not people should lose their licenses over practicing it and so forth. And so I volunteered, again, one of those things like, sure, I'd be happy to be the sacrificial lamb. So I actively volunteered to stand up and say, yes, it worked. So I was happy to be
And let's back up. So what was the quote treatment that you received by LDS Social Services?
So it was mostly talk therapy. I never went through, since I never went to BYU, I never got exposed to the electoral shock therapy,
which was a thing in the 70s in BYU. Dallin H. Oaks approved it as the president of the university. So you were able to miss again the electroshock therapy, which is good.
Yeah, dodged multiple bullets here. But it was mostly talk therapy. Good. And, it's like talking about essentially, delving into a lot of the psychological history of my family, the dynamics and everything else. And there was always this emphasis on how absent my dad was and that is the time that, interestingly enough, I came to understand how my dad just wasn't prepared, either emotionally or societally. He just was not prepared to take on the responsibilities of being a father. He was checking off all the boxes on the list without understanding fully what he was actually getting into, essentially. So that was around the time that I started to understand my dad a little better and forgive him as well. Because, yeah, there was some resentment there because he's just this absent person in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he exists. I know his name. I know our church heritage, our roots, so, our genealogy, the whole shebang. But again, my dad was almost like the black sheep, if you will. Everybody else, all of his siblings, were very, very devoted, and I have lots of extended family on the Hunter side in particular that have been mission presidents, who have been temple presidents. There's always been like a very deep connection. But my dad, and that's around also before that, kind of getting back to his involvement with the
sort of the doctrinal fundamentalists.
Exactly, the doctrinal fundamentalists. Finally, he ended up getting excommunicated. As a result of that involvement.
So apostasy.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was apostasy, and it was right around the time that I was kind of like stopped going to church again.
So normally people don't get excommunicated for just having weird beliefs. It's either for practicing unauthorized religious practices or teaching openly, doctrines that are viewed as apostate.
Yeah.
Do you know, and you may not want to talk about that, and it's kind of a distraction from your reparative therapy conversation, but of course I'm curious because
yeah. Well, the reason why it kind of ties in is because, again, it just reinforced how my dad was always absent, but it also kind of reinforced why he was the way he was. So this is all stuff that kind of emerged during the course of the therapy. So it was more apostasy, and this other person was teaching basically that the prophets have all gone astray, that they're leading the entire church astray and so forth. And so he was wanting to kind of restore the restoration, kind of like what's going on right now with
Denver Snuffer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Or
the one who's like
the remnant movement. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So,
okay.
Yeah.
But you're pretty sure he didn't practice polygamy.
No. Okay. No. Only my great-great-grandfather, to my knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you look at that time in therapy where you start processing maybe the pain associated with your dad's, let's just say, lack of involvement or interest in you. Was that something that you had thought about before, or was that something you were hurting about, I guess, growing up? Did that feel like a rejection or a pain, or was it that the reparative therapy brought that lens and then you were able, I'm just curious if it brought the pain to you, or actually if you had felt that pain growing up?
That's actually a really good question. I did feel the pain growing up. I felt his absence. I felt the pain. I felt the rejection.
Yeah.
And so again, that kind of reinforced this always looking for outside validation.
Yeah.
If I'm being rejected by the one person that I wanted most to love me,
right,
then there again, I must be broken. I have to be repaired.
That's
which
right.
also feeds into the narrative of the reparative therapy.
I'm seeing all the layers, as to the reparative, how you ended up there. Feeling.
So when they talk to you about things like being abused or a distant dad or an over-involved mom, that, to me, that's half of what I think about when I think of reparative or conversion therapy. It's sort of explaining the origins in a way that you would connect to even if there's no scientific basis for those origins. You're like, okay, now I understand why I'm the way I am. But the second half, I don't say understand. I allegedly understand why I'm the way that I am. Because back then the church would teach God would never make you gay. It's got to be sin. God doesn't create, sinful gay people. It's a choice, or it's temptation, or it's a bad upbringing. But it's never just God made me this way. So they explain the origins in an unethical, unscientific, unsubstantiated way. But the other half is to fix you, right?
Yeah.
So it's it's usually some sort of either pray the gay away or some sort of masculine, activities, chop wood,
Yes.
Play football, go on manly retreats. Now, these maybe they developed later with Evergreen and Journey into Manhood.
Right.
But there are all these, even the hugging things where you would hug other gay men and desensitize yourself to unhealthy, allegedly desensitize yourself to unhealthy, erotic impulses. But that's the second half of the reparative therapy that I'm not hearing in your treatment with this LDS social services person.
Correct.
So can you talk about any of that if it existed?
So yes, there was an aspect that did exist, and that is, getting involved with sports. So there was also a group therapy.
Oh, gosh,
right?
Really?
Yes. It's like
just if you played football or basketball.
Exactly. No, this time it was actually baseball.
Okay, if you just play baseball.
Exactly.
If only kids would play baseball, there'd be no gay kids.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's like, I don't do basketball and football. Maybe, but there are only two positions that I will play. Okay. Nothing else. And no tackling. Thank you very much. But so the baseball, we all go out and, they taught us how to, wield the bat properly and how to step into the ball to hit it properly. We learned how to, if a ball was grounded, how to scoop it up with our mitts.
Rather unbelievable.
I mean, and you're in your 20s now. It's not like you're in high school or middle school.
My gosh.
Right?
So your therapist is recommending baseball therapy to cure your gayness.
Pretty much. Yep.
Am I, I don't want to impose that on your narrative, but is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually kind of accurate.
So do more manly things, in this case, baseball.
Okay.
Exactly.
So how did that fix you?
It didn't.
And is it with other, gay men? So are you're all playing baseball
Yes.
together with this idea of we're going to develop our manly selves.
Yes.
So these are groups. So talk about groups, because we were just with one-on-one LDS social services therapy.
Yep.
Talk about the groups.
So then there's the groups that essentially were designed to kind of help. They're almost like 12-step support groups in some way.
Yes. Yes.
It's like
addiction therapy.
It is very much addiction therapy because there's this narrative which seems to be true across the spectrum of whatever it is that's afflicting you as a Mormon. There's an addiction somewhere in there. You masturbate, you're a sexual addict. You whatever it is, there's an addiction. And so yes, there was the group therapy, the group dynamic of recovering from this addiction that I had to, addiction to men. So that was part of the dynamic as well. So, and it was the group therapy where we'd go and, play sports and so forth to try to get us to be more manly, fit more into that heteronormative role that, was expected of us, especially back in like the 90s. And so because I was like so invested in it, I was, all in. And plus there's a third group that was like not officially tied to any therapy. It was more like a support group, again, very similar to like a 12-step program that we would just come together and support each other in our journey. I very quickly became somebody who was viewed as kind of knowledgeable on the topic and very, I was always sharing my testimony. I was always sharing my perspective of how this is what I learned and this is how it ties into this narrative and this is how we can move forward with, with what we've learned about ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I was never really a leader in the group or anything. It was simultaneously an unofficial person who everybody tended to look to and who always had some kind of brilliant or spiritual insight to share. And so that was one of the reasons why I started one of the reasons why I started to kind of move up within the movement and become more noticed within the movement as well, because that was just me. And I was somebody who, again, because I loved the attention that I was getting, seeking the external validation.
Right.
I was happy to lean into it even further.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So there's telling you it's because your dad was distant and you were abused. And then there's putting you in men's groups. And again, that's a weird, I don't think the church ever thought that through. The way we're going to cure men of being gay is by putting them in support groups with a bunch of other gay men. Like, like it's just going to help you date, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with a lot of them.
but anyway, for the sake of the treatment, quote treatment, you're in these 12-step programs with a bunch of gay men.
Right.
You're playing baseball. You're I'm sure also Pray the Gay Away. Was that a thing at the time?
Yeah, it was.
So was that part of the treatment to draw close to Christ, to pray, to repent, to serve in the church?
Yes. The typical prescriptive thing to overcome any challenge that you're having within the church. You read your scriptures every day. You go to sacrament meeting, you go to all of your church meetings. You have, your family home evening, all that stuff. The family stuff, we didn't really do so much. We didn't really do family home evening, but yes, I was very devout about doing my scriptures and everything. That's when I started to kind of enter my religiosity phase.
Okay.
I went all in again. I'm just somebody who it's all or nothing for me, which interestingly enough does actually tie into something my mom always said growing up. And that is, it's all or nothing, period. There's no halfway. Yeah.
So any other parts of treatment than baseball, men's groups, 12-step programs, and super righteousness? Any other parts of because we're going to talk in about a second about how you became almost like a poster boy advocate,
right?
Even to apostles, Mormon apostles, about the treatment's efficacy. Are there any other parts or components of the treatment that come to mind?
Yes, and it wasn't actually part of the treatment. It was something that I ended up doing strictly on my own, because a part of the treatment was that, the reason why you're gay is because you've always had, you don't identify with, with healthy relationships with other men. So therefore, as long as you're able to develop healthy relationships with other men, you're not going to be gay anymore. So I took it one step further. I'm like, okay, well, what's the most manly thing around here that I could possibly do that will allow me to help, to develop healthy relationships with other men? Well, my best friend at the time was part of the church fraternity, Sigma Gamma Chi, which doesn't exist anymore.
That's at the U?
That was at the U, exactly. And for a year, I'd listened to him talking about all these great activities that they were doing and so forth. And I'm like, bunch of men, all of them straight. Let's see, I can probably, nobody knows my background or anything like that. I could probably go and fit in just fine. And these are going to be healthy relationships with other men. So putting all of that together, I decided that I was going to go ahead and join the fraternity. So that was entirely me making that decision, but it fit in very neatly with the narrative that I was learning through the therapy.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So what I'm noticing is now you're regularly associating and developing relationships with men. You've got the baseball with gay men, and you've got now the fraternity with straight men.
Yes.
But all within this idea, this nest of like trying to develop, and I'll just say in quotation marks, a healthy relationship with men.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So all of that was within that context. And I will say that my time in the fraternity was one of the most positive, rewarding experiences of my entire life.
Oh, tell me, will you just say a thing, like a point or two about what you feel like it brought you that was so valuable?
I felt like I was able to truly develop real relationships with other men that were genuine, real, and I could say I loved them without it being sexual or anything like that. I mean, to this day, several of my brothers are still some of my closest friends.
Yeah.
So that was part of it. And yes, they all know about me now and everything, but
wow.
I had gone back into the closet. I came out, went back in, and decided to go all in on the conversion therapy, developing healthy relationships with men and so forth. And I mean, again, I don't do anything halfway. So I was in it to win it. I, ended up being like the social officer in my chapter for a couple of years, not just 1 year, but for 2 years in a row. Gay men do know how to, plan great parties. Those were all things that to me were very positive aspects of that particular period of my life.
And I just want to be make sure I understand.
Mhm.
Were they aware that you were gay at that time?
Not at all.
Okay, so when you say you were back in the closet,
Mhm.
so you're out at the baseball gathering, though, right?
Yep. Mhm.
Reparative therapy, out but trying to be fixed.
Yep.
Fraternity friends, though, they don't know.
Correct.
And you're kind of keeping that.
So once again, going back to compartmentalizing my life,
A
having
split self.
split self. Exactly. So
Okay.
so the split self was back, was one side was thriving, the other side was self-loathing, despising, shamed, the whole thing. So it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge. But again, because I was able to learn how in my early years how to compartmentalize so well, everybody saw the happy side of me. Everybody saw the positive side, the inspirational side, the person who's always wanting to be there for the other person, who's wanting to be of service, wanting to help. That was the side that everybody saw. Nobody ever got to see, at least again, my fraternity brothers, they never got to see the part that was depressed.
So can I ask you just a bit about that? Because I'm getting a real sense for the self that shows up almost in service of others. Like, how can I show up so you all are comfortable? So you all, are able to be with me and value me.
Yes.
So if you were to talk about what people didn't see, that sounds effortful to me. That sounds like a lot of work. But what did that look like? What was the side people didn't see? What did it cost you to,
What it cost me was a deeper deficit in self-love. It was, at the time, because I was so practiced at it, it was just all subconscious behavior at that point. And so it was very, I was aware that there was a sense of I am not lovable. I still have this attraction to other men. I am not acting out on it, but I'm still attracted to them. I'm trying to do everything I can to end this attraction, but it's still there. So again, there's this part where I'm performing the role that I was expected to perform.
Yeah.
And doing a really, really good job at it. Later in life, somebody joked, man, you should have gotten an Oscar for your performance because that's how well I played it.
Yeah. And so there's two things there. One is you becoming an advocate, that I want to talk about that in depth. But before we do that, you're experiencing these treatments, quote treatments, and you're probably looking inside thinking, am I really changed? Did these treatments fix my gayness?
Yes.
Did they work? And or have my behaviors changed? So before we go to the advocacy part, to what extent at the time you're experiencing these treatments and being asked to be an advocate for reparative therapy, what were your feelings inside about your gayness? Had you come to believe they had changed, and or had your behavior changed or not?
My behavior did not change.
So you continued to have romantic experiences with gay men while you were experiencing reparative therapy.
They were very rare, but they did happen periodically. It was just almost like, say, for instance, if you're in a 12-step program and you relapse, that's kind of what it was like for me. I would relapse. I was definitely kind of further down into the whole of self-loathing. Again, I kept that hidden. I kept that locked away. I kept it stuffed down inside. But I could tell it's not working. So what do? I go down the path that so many people do, and that is, I need to read the scriptures more. I'm doing this. It's
double down.
I double down. Exactly. It's this problem with me. I'm doing it wrong.
Right.
And this reminds me of masturbation treatment or even dieting, where if you're on a diet or you're doing 12 steps for masturbation, you can always hold on for 3 weeks or a month or even a couple months. But you're from my experience, the people that I would see as a psychologist, they would always quote relapse, because humans aren't meant to go without food. Humans aren't meant to starve. Humans aren't meant to go without sexuality.
Yeah.
So you could always white knuckle it for a time when you're under an unethical treatment, but you're pretty much never going to be able to psychologically or sexually castrate yourself.
Correct. And that's exactly what it was like for me.
Yeah.
I would white knuckle it for a while, then there'd have a relapse. And then I'd go through the guilt. I would go through the shame. I'd be the self-loathing.
Cycle. You're on that cycle ride again.
Absolutely. I was right back on the hamster wheel.
Yes.
Exactly. So it was
a lot.
a rough time. And looking back, I'm like, how did I even survive it? Honestly.
Yeah.
I can't explain how I managed to make it through. Actually, the thought is just occurring to me right now. The narrative that I had in my mind is that if I were to take my life, how would that affect my family? How would that affect the people who care about me, who love me? I didn't care about myself, but how would that actually impact the people that I loved?
So are you saying you had suicidal ideation?
I did.
Okay. During your reparative therapy?
I did, yes.
Okay. And that's why I pursued this for my PhD in 2009. So I'll back up and just tell you a quick story. So I'm at Microsoft. It's 2000. Okay. 2000. So, a little bit after you were in these reparative therapy, and I've subscribed to this news service that like sends me news notifications every time there's a Mormon related story, because I'm in my own faith journey at this point at Microsoft, trying to figure out if the church is true and paying attention to the news. And all of a sudden in 2000, if my memory is right, I get an email notification, probably a Google News thing, that says like, Mormon dies by suicide. And I click on it, and it's this man named Stuart Mattis, who in 2000-ish, if I'm remembering right, drives to and this, I'll just give a safety or trigger warning for those who are sensitive to discussions about suicide. Please take care either of yourself or those who are listening or viewing. The news article said a young man named Stuart Mattis drove to his local California chapel, pinned a note to his chest that said, "Do not resuscitate," and shot himself on the steps of his local Mormon church. So that was in about 2000. And I thought, whoa, why would that's dramatic? I know this sounds terrible. I had started to become more sensitive to the LGBT experience in the professional world, living in Chicago. My TEDx talk is about this. And then I had gay Mormon cousins who grew up in Ogden area who came out to me while I was at BYU. And then Margie's cousin, Scott, came out to us while we were at Microsoft. And all of a sudden I'm realizing, whoa, being gay probably isn't a choice, and people are dying. Like, this is not good. So that's what, and so that's when I started thinking maybe the church has this wrong. And then if I fast forward I leave Microsoft in 2004 and I moved to Logan, and I start noticing the obituaries in the Salt Lake Tribune and the Deseret News. And it's just week after week, it's like, Johnny loved the Lord, was in theater, served his mission, and now he's with his loving Heavenly Father. That's like every obituary, every week almost there was an obituary that said something like that. And I'm like, wait, are these gay Mormon men, is there a suicide epidemic of gay Mormon men in Utah? And it turns out that by all accounts there was. And so now I'm going back to the 90s and because nowadays apologists are going to say, oh, gay people weren't killing themselves, that was overblown, or gay people are happier in the church. Like there's all this new apologetics around being gay and Mormon. Can you confirm whether these conversion or reparative therapy techniques in the 90s and 2000s were in fact causing suicidality for you and or for others that you came in contact with?
I can absolutely confirm that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Several of the people that were in my group that I was going to group therapy with are no longer with us as a result of the conversion therapy. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to tell my story now, is because I know what the narrative is. I know what people are trying to say as far as the apologetics are concerned. And I can say emphatically, I was there. I lived it. I was a spokesperson for how it worked. And I can tell you from personal lived experience that it did not work. And if anybody wants to invalidate my story, that's on them.
Well, not just that it didn't work, that it caused you suicidal ideation.
Yes,
absolutely.
It caused you harm.
And that's what I found in basically the result of my dissertation was 0% of those who engaged in conversion or reparative therapy had the gay go away. And that was like 900 people I surveyed. 0% reported that conversion or reparative therapy eliminated their same-sex attraction or whatever it was called. Whereas overwhelmingly high percentages reported harm, whether it was psychotherapeutic conversion therapy, whether it was support groups, whether it was retreats, whether it was religious, righteousness, whether it was going to bishops, stake presidents, mission presidents. We looked at like 9 different forms of conversion or reparative therapy.
Yeah.
All of them were reported as harmful and ineffective.
Yeah. 100%.
And often leading to suicidal ideation.
Absolutely, yes. I can confirm all of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, I don't mean to be ham-fisted, but what I just heard you tell in your story is this wasn't working. You were white knuckling. You still were gay. You would have these relapses, but you were trying to stay on the wagon and be, quote, sober. And you wanted to die. And somehow they still recruited you to be their spokesman for these treatments working.
Yep. All the above.
How in the world can you want to die and also want to be the poster boy? How does that work?
Again, it kind of goes back to that disease to please.
Yeah.
So what kept me going was the desire to please the people around me, to please my family, to please the community, to please my brothers, all of that, all of that. So that's what kept me going. That, again, I was so afraid of how would my death impact the people around me. I don't want to do that to them. I do not want them to be mourning me because they had no idea. They had no idea the truth of my life.
Right.
And at the very least wanted them to know the truth of my life, even though I was hiding such a huge part of my life from them.
But then there's another avenue, which is just to quit the church and move to San Francisco and live your big, beautiful gay life. That didn't appear to you as an option either in the 90s.
No.
Why was that not an option? Obviously,
that was more of my home life, actually. Okay. So, at home, and this is true in the Latin culture in general, but with my mom, it has taken off to an extreme, and that is men do not move away from home until they are married. And so I wasn't married. You don't move away from home. Otherwise, it's offensive. It is hurtful. It is, the whole drama that Latin moms like to put on their youngest sons, especially. And plus, there was another underlying dynamic, and that is when my dad left. So around the time that he was excommunicated and so forth, he left the family, and he moved off to Montana, and so that just left my mom. I ended up becoming her replacement, her emotional support replacement for my dad. And so going right back into the narrative of disease to please, I am now my dad's replacement. I need to be there for my mom. I have to help her.
She needs you.
She needs me. She needs me. So I'll do whatever she wants me to do.
Yeah.
So
I just want to add, I also think there has to be that psychological component too of you know what the church does in always making it your fault, that keeps you in oftentimes because you're like, oh, well, I'll just try harder. I'll just read more. I'll just pray more. I'm sure if I just, that'll be the thing. And I think it keeps you in that cycle
Yes.
longer as well.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
This belief that it's inherent to you, which then of course points to that it's within your power to fix it.
Exactly. You know, there's this narrative of, well, anything that shows up in your life, you created, which I know of a much healthier way to approach it now. It's like, yeah, I'm sure I'm responsible for what shows up, but it's a result of my decisions. And what was showing up then was the result of my choosing to stay put, but also choosing to believe what I was being told.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was just like the self-reinforcing cycle of it's you, the victim blaming. You know, it's you, it's your fault. You're the one who's not good enough. You can't do it properly. Yeah. So
Okay, and so you couldn't be your big, beautiful, best gay self.
Nope.
And you were doing conversion therapy and felt trapped. So you were suicidal. That all makes sense, but you were denying it because you wanted to please.
Mm-hmm.
The church at the time would have given two other options for you: celibacy or marrying a woman. So do you want to talk about whether those were two menu options given to you as a part of this therapy?
They were indeed.
And
yes.
how do you want to how did that happen?
So the celibacy was the more appealing option for me because I could not do that to another woman. I know that a lot of the people that I was in therapy with, yes, they went and they got married and so forth. And they were told by their bishops
to marry a woman.
Yes.
And that it would go away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Promised.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But fortunately, because again, there was that element of growing up, it's like you pick and choose the things that you want to, live by. It made no sense to me whatsoever. Why would I do this to another woman?
Yeah.
Why would I, knowing how I feel,
yes,
hurt her in that way, especially if there were children involved? I mean, and there was no attraction whatsoever. I mean, women to me were my best friends. They're the people I could emotionally connect to. They're the people that I could hang out with. There was just I respected women too much, and I respected not myself, but the other person too much to do that to them. So that was something that just never resonated with me ever.
And our research showed like 70% divorce rates in these mixed orientation marriages, and super low mental health, attributes or reported attributes on those straight spouses and the gay spouses. Depression, anxiety, suicidality. It was just a disaster for everyone involved.
I'm friends with some people who, that was exactly the result. The women who were in part of these mixed orientation marriages, and it has scarred them. Some have been able to move on. Some have actually very good relationships with their ex-husbands. Others, even 2 decades later, still are traumatized by the experience. They have not been able to move on. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were invited to LDS Church headquarters to meet with 3 general authorities, including the late recent prophet or president of the church, Russell M. Nelson, and President Henry B. Eyring, who's currently in the LDS Church First Presidency.
Yeah.
Tell us what that was like to bear your testimony about reparative therapy to Mormon apostles, prophets, seers, and revelators. You can go as slow as you want on that one. Do you remember what year that was? Ish?
I don't remember the year, but
90s?
It was in the 90s. Okay. It was definitely the early 90s.
Okay.
I want to say possibly 91, 92.
Okay.
I want to say 92.
Okay.
That's when it happened. President Nelson was still a member of the quorum of the 12 apostles. President Eyring was actually in the presiding bishopric at the time.
Oh, okay.
And I can't remember who the other general authority was, but I think it was a member of the 70, but I can't remember who it was. I just remember Eyring and Nelson because they were like the bigwigs, if you will. I was invited by my therapist because, again, I was like held up as the shining example of when you commit, how this works. Because I was oftentimes, other people who were just starting with conversion therapy were sometimes referred to me by the other therapists within church social services for me to kind of mentor them and help them along and so forth, because I was just so devoted to the religious aspects of it. Mm-hmm. And so they saw my religiosity, they saw my devotion to the church and to the doctrine and everything else as being an example of how this actually works. And so consequently, because I was a mentor to several young men, I was kind of very vocal. In fact, at one point when there was a panel of people at the University of Utah who were, talking about conversion therapy and how it actually works, I was there. I wasn't part of the panel, but I was there to support them. And, there was a lot of the people at the LGBT community that were there that were just like angry, understandably so. And Channel 2 was there. One of the reporters from the local news was there and, interviewing people from the LGBT community. But I felt like this is going to be very lopsided. There's nobody who's representing the conversion therapy side. So I walked up to her and I said, I'm somebody who actually is going through it, and I'm perfectly okay. So she interviewed me. And I did end up on the news, but it was edited. So that way what I said kind of like fit into the narrative that they wanted, essentially. But because I was willing to just, because I was taking the initiative on my own, they knew that I had on my own gone and joined the fraternity. They saw the clip on the news and everything. So like, this is somebody who truly is willing to stand up and be a vocal advocate for conversion therapy. So that's when I got invited to go to church headquarters somewhere on one of the upper floors. And, that's when I met with President Nelson, President Eyring, and the other general authority. It was not a long meeting, maybe about 30 minutes. Not a lot of questions were actually asked. It was more like there were two other people that were in conversion therapy with me that were also present. My mom was there. I think the other two, they didn't have any family that was supporting them at all. So, it was just the two of them. And kind of funny, my mom almost became like the adopted mom for a lot of the people in my conversion therapy group. She was just always somebody who was just very, very loving, very loving.
I'm kind of surprised Dean Bird wasn't there.
Yeah.
And Dean Bird was sort of the Mormon. I got the sense that he was closeted gay himself from the audio recordings of, I know that's a terrible assumption, but I mean, and I think I've had it validated that he himself struggled with being gay, but he was a physician who I would say was the grandfather of Mormon reparative or conversion therapy.
Yes.
And he definitely, as far as I understand it, had the ear of the brethren and would have been behind the creation of Evergreen International and the church's program with conversion and reparative therapy. So I'm surprised he wasn't in this meeting.
I'm kind of surprised he was too. And none of the actual therapists were there. It was just, the general authorities, the three of us, plus my mom. I think one of the representatives from church social services was there. If I'm not mistaken, it was my actual therapist that I was actually seeing. But it was a small group.
So what was the purpose of that meeting, to your understanding?
To bear testimonies how this church-sponsored program was having a positive impact.
I see.
And it's so weird because many of us, and maybe you, would want to be angry at the church leaders for sponsoring conversion or reparative therapy. And they were having gay men and probably women tell them that it worked. But y'all were victims of the church, too.
Yeah.
So in some ways it was circular. It was like this circular self-reinforcing disaster.
Yeah.
Where the church made you suppress your homosexuality and told you to do conversion therapy.
Yeah.
But then you would do the conversion therapy and want to please. So then you'd give feedback back to top church leaders that it was all working. So they would feel like they wanted to support it and encourage it more.
Yeah.
What a terrible self-reinforcing cluster bomb. You know what I'm saying?
It's a horrible, it's a horrible feedback loop.
Yeah.
It's an echo chamber within a feedback loop.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, it's awful. And
oh
yeah, I mean, cluster. Yeah.
Cluster F.
Cluster F is, that my word for it too, honestly.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, but again, it's a short meeting. We each bore our testimonies. Now, this is what's really, really weird about it, is that being in the room with the general authorities was, again, akin to having a spiritual experience. I believe that they were genuine in their expressions of love for us. But here's where I think that there's a part of me that's like, yeah, but was their expression of love for me because of the fact that I was a poster boy for what they were doing?
Mm-hmm. You were working within the system.
I was working within the system. So of course they're going to be expressing this tremendous love for me and support for me.
That's right.
Because I was everything that they were hoping.
That's right. You were also of use to them.
Very much.
At that point.
Very much. Yeah. So that was, yeah.
And I'm looking it up, and I'm finding that Evergreen International was formed the summer of 1989.
Yes.
So just a couple years before you would have gone and borne testimony to the church leaders.
Correct. And interesting. So Evergreen International is an offshoot of one of those, a group that I had actually been attending, and the name of it at the time was called Phoenix.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah. So that was actually the predecessor to Evergreen.
All right.
And, some of the people that were part of the Phoenix group were like, we think we should have a more structured approach, because it was very informal. It was very, let's just get together. Let's support each other. Let's bear our testimonies. Let's basically be almost like sponsors within the 12-step, type of a thing. But there was a small handful, I think 5 or 6 of individuals who were like, no, we need more structure. We need more of this. So they went off and formed Evergreen. And those of us who remained in Phoenix kind of looked at Evergreen as being like the apostates of the group, if you will.
Interesting.
So that was the origin of how it actually all started. And then Evergreen, because it was very well organized, and they were trying to bring in all these experts and so forth to kind of help with the movement, if you will, they gained the credibility, they gained the attention of the church and others, and so that's how Evergreen actually started.
Well, eventually, Evergreen, the church, the Mormon Church, would send a general authority or an emeritus general authority to the annual Evergreen Conference to speak. Evergreen Conferences were held on LDS Church property, and through direct or indirect funding, Evergreen was funded by the church, and its financial supporters.
Yeah.
So it became an unofficial arm of the church.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, my involvement with Evergreen, eventually I kind of got over my, okay, fine, a bunch of ungrateful, angry people, because that's how that was the narrative within the Phoenix group. So after, I got over that and so forth, I was loosely involved, but I was invited to help plan a couple of the conferences, the very, very early conferences. I think it's like either the second or third. There are 2 conferences that I was involved with. And so I did help. I was part of the steering committee to help with the planning and everything else. And the second conference that I was assisted with, that's where we managed to score a big coup as far as the Mormon community was concerned, because we managed to get the grandfather of the entire reparative therapy movement. Joseph Nicolosi,
He spoke at Evergreen.
to speak at Evergreen at that particular conference. And it was a big deal because, the evangelicals and Mormons, they do not talk to each other.
Right.
He was basically like the spiritual figurehead of Exodus, which was the
Exodus International
Yes.
was the Christian equivalent to
Mhm.
Evergreen.
Exactly.
Wasn't Nicolosi Catholic though? But maybe
I don't
not.
know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
But so that's where I actually ended up meeting him at that point.
And you were assigned to be his chaperone? Is
I
that
was.
what you said?
Yeah, exactly.
And what was that like? What would you do as a chaperone?
Basically, I would just drive him around to where he needed to go. I would sit with him at lunch and so forth. Just, two people just hanging out and just talking and having a good time, basically. That's kind of what it really boiled down to.
Interesting.
Making sure that he got to his places, where he needed to go. For instance, if he was speaking, because he was the keynote speaker at that particular conference. So making sure that he got there to on time so he could attend his meetings or whatever. So that was part of it as well.
And what types of speakers and presentations were given at these conferences, and what types of social activities or clinical or therapeutic activities were conducted at these conferences?
So there really weren't any clinical or therapeutic activities that were actually presented there. It was most of what was presented was actually just studies, studies showing out how it's effective and so forth. Other people within other therapists within church social services. There was, I think, a general authority, low ranking general authority that was there at the both conferences. So it's just basically a lot of cheering on, helpful, insights as far as, how this can work and so forth. But for me, it had more of a social aspect of it than it did, an actual therapeutic part of it. But then again, I'm sure it evolved more because this is in the very, very early days when they're still trying to figure out what they wanted to do with the conferences.
I see.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then also these sorts of conferences, and later North Star is another name that emerges as sort of a successor to Evergreen, and Journey to Manhood, which is what I think Dave Matheson created as an offshoot of Evergreen.
Right.
These gatherings of Mormon gay men had the reputation of also being havens or hotbeds for Mormon gay men hooking up. Is that, I don't want to impose that on your narrative about Evergreen, but
gosh, yeah. I mean,
okay, talk about that. Like, you're there to say I'm fixed. Right. And all these men are gathering to say we're Mormon, we're believers, we're fixed, and they're hooking up on the side. Explain how that worked.
I think it's a cognitive dissonance.
I was going to say it's called like being a human being.
Right, exactly, yes. And it was crazy. I mean, behind the scenes, a couple of us are jokingly referring to it as a second-rate meat market. Honestly,
yeah.
We were just like, I mean, we knew things were going on, but there's also kind of like an element of judgment. It's just like, oh, they're not really committed, or this. I mean,
interesting.
There was judgment, but no judgment. It was, again, a weird dynamic, a really, really weird dynamic.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but I mean, I was hit on a couple of times, and honestly, it's just like, oh, I mean, the guys who hit on me. They hit on me, but I could tell that there was an innuendo in their conversations.
Yeah.
Oh, they were really, really good looking. And had I not been so devoted to this, again, I'm committed, I'm in it to win it, I totally would have hooked up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But no, I'm on the steering committee. I have to set an example. I have to be the person that people look to.
It reminds me of the pink elephant a little bit, not to be like very reductive, but what
1000%.
happens when it's like, don't think of the pink elephant. You're in this like complete deprivation mode of living. And then it's sort of like, let's put a bunch of just, in one room.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the pink elephant reminds me of it's like, okay, fine. I can't hook up with these men, with these people, but at least I still have Rosie Palm,
Yeah.
No, it's just, yeah. So you find a way to relieve the pressure one way or another. So, yeah.
But Margie, I'll just add to what you say. It's more than just the pink elephant, because the pink elephant suggests some external random thing that's just introduced, that once it's introduced and you're told not to think about it, you think about it more. There's also just your innate drives, and it's not just sex. Tell me if I'm wrong. What else is it besides sex? There are other components, right?
Oh, yeah.
What are they?
Speaking for me, for me, it was more emotional connection.
Yeah.
The sex was part of it, but to me, I achieved that emotional connection through the sex, not the other way around.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just you were after sex, you were after emotional connection, intellectual connection, psychological connection, aesthetic connection, spiritual connection, and sexual connection. And you just happened to be along all those fronts attracted to men, not women.
Correct.
Women could be friends.
Yep. But the men were where I wanted all of that. I wanted that, from the men. And of course, the way that I would be self-validating for myself, because there's that huge gaping hole of self-hatred that's sitting within me. My way of feeling like, yes, I was lovable was if I could successfully seduce someone. Of course, this was after I after I left the whole conversion therapy thing and just decided this isn't working for me anymore.
Right.
But that's where I was depriving myself afterward. I'm like, yeah, no more. I'm done. Then kind of going off the deep end as far as seeking validation through, okay, can I successfully seduce someone?
Yeah. I mean, I guess with the pink elephant, what I was trying to say rather like ineffectively was just this idea of like extreme deprivation or absence of things that make us want to live.
Yes.
Like emotional connection is part of what makes us want to be alive, right?
Yeah.
This experience of sexual connectedness with another person, being known, it is part of like aliveness. So the idea of like, no, you cannot have that. But by the way, we're going to stick you in a room with a bunch of people while you're being deprived of that. Like, to me, that just feels so inhumane.
It's very inhumane. I
and
mean,
problematic. Like, no wonder people were honestly human in the moment.
Very human.
And then,
I mean, we see that in other religions. I mean, the constant scandals within the Catholic Church, because priests are not allowed to express any sort of intimacy at all, except for spiritual intimacy. And within the Mormon Church, it's the same thing, just expressed in a different form.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. And then really quickly, in your meeting with Henry Eyring and Russell Nelson and the other General Authority, did they say anything that came across as interesting or hurtful or inspiring, or were they just quiet and mostly listening? Is there anything that you walked away with other than feeling the majesty or spirituality of of their authority and of the surroundings?
Yeah.
Did they strike you as spiritual or uplifted or enlightened or not enlightened or not spiritual? Any impressions?
My impression was that, they spoke very little, honestly. They looked their attention was focused entirely on who was speaking. So they were very present in the meeting. What I saw in their eyes was the only way I can describe it is compassion. It wasn't like, oh, it's just like, here we are, we're just, going through the motions or whatever. I saw compassion in their eyes.
Yeah.
I really did. It's like, you've been suffering, and thank you for sharing this journey with us. And we're happy that we can provide you the framework with which you can receive God's love, with which you can participate in the atonement.
That's so tough.
Yeah,
that's so tough.
Yeah,
because we love the idea of compassion, but like the compassion comes from this place of a judgment about you, as you naturally are.
Yeah,
as a problem.
Yes.
And also it's them either intentionally or unintentionally creating the disease and then offering themselves up as the cure.
It's almost like they cut you and then are treating you for the cut that actually they Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Kind of goes back to the conversation that frequently surfaces, here in Mormon stories, which is the high demand religion that creates these environments where you become so dependent on the religion.
Yeah.
They cut you, they offer you the healing, then they cut you again, they offer you the healing. There's this horrible cycle. And then of course there's the narrative of oh, well, if you choose to leave, it's because you just couldn't, you couldn't handle it. My response to that is, it's true. I can't handle it. I can't handle hating myself. I can't handle going through this process of having to stick myself in this little box and, with a straitjacket on. You are absolutely right. I want my freedom. I want my freedom to be able to celebrate who I am as a full and complete human being. I can't handle, the self-hatred that kept me imprisoned for such a long time. So the people who say that, no, you can't handle it, absolutely, I 100% agree. I don't want that as part of my life at all.
Yeah. And yet for 5 years, you were the poster boy for it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is just so hard and sad and dark. And
yeah.
It's why your story is so important and why it's so courageous. Because, today, the church will just be approaching this and other things like it in different ways. But this model, this structure of denying a human element, of pathologizing it, of making you feel guilt and shame over it, of then offering, quote, cures for something and the cures don't work, and then having nonprofits or poster boys or experts all try and support something that really is unethical and unsupportable, and then churning through poster boys and churning through generations of people and doing damage it's just rinse and repeat. Yeah. And the thing what I think gets escaped, that gets missed from an individual story like yours, is tens of thousands of Mormon gay men or Mormon lesbian women either were celibate and lived horrifically sad and unhealthy lives, or they, as gay people, married straight people and had horrific marriages or painful, dysfunctional, unhealthy marriages with kids now intermingled. And most of them ended up in divorce with really sad, horrible outcomes, other than they probably loved their kids and they probably had love for their partner.
Yeah.
But this policy wreaked havoc on tens of thousands of Mormon families across multiple decades and multiple generations.
For an institution that focuses so much on the family, it's amazing how many families they ripped apart through the counsel that they kept on giving.
Yeah.
Right.
And how much damage was done.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's really, really sad.
Yeah. And it's why after all these years, you would probably feel compelled to tell your story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because they made you part of it. They made you complicit. They made you a poster boy for this
exactly
process.
And of course, part of it was, for me, also living up to my pioneer heritage.
Yeah.
There's that component of, my great-great-grandfather, Edward Hunter, who was, the presiding bishop of the church under Brigham Young. I have all of the, I have these incredible, wonderful uncles who have served as mission presidents, and cousins and so forth that all have served in high positions, maybe not reaching the point of being a general authority, but nevertheless positions of great respect within the church. Why would I not want to contribute to that family heritage?
Yeah.
Yes. It's hitting me too, this idea of what happens when you believe you're innately created wrong, that it creates this thirst to and is so innately Mormon, to be chosen. So much of Mormonism is specialness and that you're chosen. So here you are, a gay man meeting with, the top people in the church, and you're chosen. You want to be chosen, and of course you did. Of course you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And another little string that feeds the narrative of I'm broken, external validation. I got it. I'm chosen. Yay me. I can feel good about myself for now.
That's right.
And maybe even most importantly, mom can be proud of me.
Oh, yes. That was always a through line through it. All of it. Mom can be proud of me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So talk more about how it unraveled. How did you go from poster boy to both leaving conversion therapy, reparative therapy, and closeted gayness, and basically leaving Mormonism, and I think leaving Utah? Like, how, take us through how all that unraveled after those 5 years.
Sure. So it started to unravel shortly after that conference, actually, with Dr. Nicolosi.
So we're in 97-ish now?
Yeah, about that time. Yeah, but actually, no, we're talking about 95.
Okay.
So 95 was, it was kind of like a slow burn. It just was reaching a point where it's like, I was relapsing more. The level of self-hatred was just horrible. AOL was starting to become a big thing at the time. So chat rooms and everything else, the internet.
Enter the internet.
Enter the internet.
Yeah.
Exactly. Back when you had the dial-up connections and the whole thing. So, the chat rooms and so forth were just kind of my place of being able to feel connected, feel valued, feel loved, and so forth. Started chatting with this one person out in Jacksonville, Florida. And we just had this real fantastic connection. And I'm like, you know what? This might potentially could go somewhere. So, went out for a little visit. As far as my mom was concerned, I just had a good friend that I was going to go out and visit in Florida, and spent a week there, had a wonderful time. And I'm like, you know what? I really need to live my life. And I was still going to church. I was still going to the singles wards and so forth, the student wards up at the University of Utah. I was, because the fraternity was part of LDSSA, the Latter-day Saints Student Association, I was in the BYU bubble at, the University of Utah. LDSSA is as much of a bubble as BYU is, essentially. It's like BYU light is what I called it. So, I was there, I was active, I was going to the wards, I was going to activities. One of the things that always drove me crazy whenever I'd go to these activities is the two constant questions. I call them mandatory questions. Where did you serve your mission? And when are you getting married?
Mm-hmm.
I just got so tired of hearing those questions all the time. Finally, I just went to the mission thing, because I actually did not serve a mission, because at the time I was going through conversion therapy, I desperately wanted to serve a mission. I wanted to serve God. I wanted to do everything possible to spread this beautiful message of love and everything else, which I still felt that my personal connection never went away. I still believed in that, and I still felt validated and loved. Cannot explain why I could hate myself so much and yet at the same time still feel so loved. It was, there's a lot of messed up stuff going on up here. And so when I wanted to go on a mission, went through the whole process. I went through the interviews, the worthiness stuff and so forth. And then finally, I had to go through church headquarters in order to be able to receive a mission call. And I was told, well, headquarters said that now is not the time. I'm like, okay, that's weird. But then after, additional conversations with my bishop, I realized that, the reason that they gave me now is not the time. It's like, well, you have repented. You have come clean. You have done all of these things. You are good. But there may be other young men that are out there who have not gone through this process, and we do not want to put you at risk. That was the narrative. I'm like, no, it's more along the lines of y'all are very, very afraid of me going out there and converting your sons or whatever. So I've now realized that it was more just literal homophobia of sending somebody who is acknowledged going through conversion therapy out to the mission field.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And my bishop was a wonderful man. I mean, I feel like my experience within the church, despite of all the harm and everything like that, was always one of people genuinely loving you because they saw me as being completely 100% devoted to that path. That straight and narrow path. So of course, you're going to be supported, and you're going to be, you're not going to have people just like, oh, it's so sad. That narrative is not going to exist as long as you're showing up all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, and I do think that's complicated, because I do think, harm can be unintended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For people that, in their experience feel like they love you and care about you.
And I know it's authentic. I know it's genuine.
Yeah. And harm can still happen there. And I think that's kind of a complicated thing to experience and parse apart.
Yeah.
I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely complicated.
Yeah.
So after, so finally when I got tired of the, when are you going on your mission narrative, I just finally said, I actually served my mission here.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was not the typical mission that you would think of, but yes, I served my mission right here locally. I'm like, really? You're like, yep, I had a special mission that I was called to do.
The Salt Lake City North Evergreen mission.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
I get it.
Yes, I did serve my mission, just not out there in the field. So yeah, that was basically.
You served a 5-year mission.
I served a 5-year mission.
Honestly.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
Same intensity, same control.
Worse.
Exactly.
Intensity, worse control. Worse control. But all like the elements. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that's and I'm like, okay, this works. Great. And then of course the whole thing of when are you getting married? I couldn't avoid that one.
Yeah.
So I never really responded to it. I'm like, I just haven't found the right person yet.
I know a really cute girl I want to set you up with.
Oh yeah, I got a lot of that. I mean, I went out on some dates and again, hit it off, had a great time, but I would never let it go very far.
Yeah.
Honestly. So yeah. And, so circling back to my decision to live authentically, it's like, I can't do this anymore, but I don't want to. I was petrified of, coming out to my mom again and that whole drama. I don't want to deal with that. So what's the easiest thing to do? Move. And since I'm not getting married, but I found a loophole in my mom's narrative, because it's like, you don't leave the house until you're married. Well, my loophole was go as far away as I can. So I found a job in Tampa.
Right.
It's funny. Margie's cousin that we referred to earlier lived in Vermont. He moved all the way to Washington State to come out to himself and to others. And we were out in Washington at the time. You went from Utah
to Florida.
all the way to Florida.
Exactly.
My gay cousins who grew up in Ogden area, went to Cambridge, Massachusetts. And it's just like, that's really far. Yeah. That's like reverse pioneer.
Oh yeah,
action.
very much. You want to get as far away as possible without necessarily relocating to another country. That's what I did.
So wild.
Yeah. It also reminds me of the poem by Mary Oliver, The Journey, because it's basically you're going out in a way to get beyond all the voices, get some space around you so you can hear yourself.
Yes.
Like quiet the external.
Yes.
That's what it reminds me of.
Oh yeah. I really needed to quiet the external, because it was the internal was joining the cacophony of the external.
Yeah.
And it was just starting to become unbearable. And I needed to be real to myself. I needed to live the life I really wanted to live. I was already like 26, 27 by that point. I'm like, no. I can't continue doing this.
Yeah.
So I used the, moving closer to this person in Jacksonville as kind of a pretense to look for the job. And then I found the job in Tampa, and I moved to Tampa, and we're still talking. And then suddenly out of the blue, because he had been talking about, no, we really need to move closer to each other so we can see each other more frequently. I moved to Tampa. 3 weeks later, it's like, oh no, you're not close enough. So that was that. Fortunately, I had made the decision to move for myself. I had made the decision. Sure, there was like a slightly influencing factor, but I wanted to live authentically. So
I want to bring out one last thing in your outline really quickly before we move on that you've alluded to, but I want to also make it very clear.
Yeah.
Is it right or wrong that you wrote in your outline that you saw Mormon male participants in Evergreen end their lives, and that was influential to you realizing that you weren't going to stick around and be one of those statistics.
Yes.
Yes. You're going to save yourself.
I was going to save myself.
Because you had Evergreen or Mormon reparative therapy male peers die by suicide.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, John. Like,
Yeah.
we need a moment for that.
Yeah. No, it was, when I think about them and how they suffered, no, there are no words that can really express the loss of those souls who suffered as much and were not able to make it through. There just are no words to describe that, but it feels like, especially these are people that I knew, that I cared about, that I loved. So yeah,
Needlessly lost.
Needlessly lost. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you for acknowledging that and acknowledging them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing. And that's why this topic is so important. And that's why we're so grateful you're willing to share your story with us.
Yeah.
Accountability, right?
Yes.
So you moved to Florida, leave the church.
Mm-hmm.
Did you continue believing? Did you have any theological, historical, or doctrinal deconstruction at that point?
No, I continue to believe. I just was like,
that's so bad.
I know, right? As far as I'm concerned, I'm still Mormon. I still identified as Mormon. There was no issues whatsoever as far as that particular aspect of it. That was central to my spirituality. I just didn't want to go to church anymore because I just didn't want to be constantly asked, "Where did you go on your mission? When are you going to get married?" And I just want to live authentically. So, still Mormon, still believing, still all that, but just not active anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you write in the outline that you met your husband, but you didn't get married in the 90s.
No.
But you became partnered.
We did.
In the 90s.
Yeah.
Now, is this a partner that you were with for a long time and or still with?
Yeah, we're approaching 25 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So when you say you met your husband and partnered with your husband in the 90s, one of the first men you dated in Florida, you end up partnering with.
Finding a life partner?
Yeah. So he was probably, I'd say, of the serious relationships that I had, because there were a lot of hookups. I did kind of go crazy, after being repressed for so long. The pendulum swung one way, and then finally
to find its way.
Exactly. Finally found its way to the center. So when it did, there were maybe 3 people that I was dated very seriously, and my husband was the last of those.
Got it.
We actually do not celebrate our wedding anniversary as our anniversary. We celebrate the day that we actually met.
Yes.
As our anniversary.
And what year was that?
That was in 2000, early 2000, 2002.
Okay.
So
2002. That's amazing. You've been together with your partner for 25 years.
Yeah.
And I love the serendipity aspect of how you met your husband as well.
Yeah.
He was lost.
I helped him find where he was living because he just moved in the neighborhood. Genuinely, he still gets lost to this day, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just his thing. But helping him find where he moved into, and then him taking me out to dinner that night as a thank you. And we've been together ever since.
And he was never Mormon or LDS,
No.
right? Okay.
He grew up, he's from Peru, grew up Catholic.
And then you write, so you didn't tell your mom you had a partner.
Nope.
Correct?
Nope.
So how'd you handle her visits?
Whew, that was creatively.
She would come visit you.
She would come visit me. The first time that she surprised me, it's like, "Oh, I'm coming out to visit." Because for me, it was easier for me to go out to visit her, because that way I can keep everything hidden and so forth. So she decided that she was going to come out to visit. I'm like, "Oh crap, what am I going to do now?" So I told my husband, "Could you go stay with a friend for a few days while she's here?"
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
And then he's going to feel like you're ashamed of him or embarrassed.
Yeah. Somehow he
got it.
He understood.
Yeah.
He understood.
Yeah.
Because, he had been married. He had 2 sons. He
He'd been married to a woman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So he had 2 sons. So he kind of understood.
Got it.
Because, he wanted to, protect them as well and everything. So there was a dynamic of mutual understanding there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, fine. No, we'll play this little game. And that just kept going on for a while. Eyring was just my good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was just my good friend.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he was, just very much a part of my life from the day that we met. And it really kind of finally came out again when we moved back to Utah.
I could hide that from mom when you
I was
moved
gonna
to
say.
Utah.
Especially when you're living with her temporarily.
Oh.
Trying to find housing.
Indeed.
So that was a challenge. We did our best to kind of keep things on the down low and just be very discreet and everything. We would actually take little road trips together so we could spend time together.
Right. It sounds like, so did you experience when you moved back to Utah, living temporarily with your mom and partnered?
Right.
Did you experience, I don't want to say but moving back into how can I make you comfortable? Your feelings, before our reality,
Yes.
Did you experience that?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah, absolutely. And it did cause friction between us.
Yeah.
But
That sounds stressful.
Oh, it was very stressful for both of us, honestly. I don't know how he managed to endure my craziness.
Yeah.
I really don't understand how he managed to endure all of this weirdness and just messed up head that was part of me.
Yeah, and I think too it's so indicative of roles, like the importance of family systems, roles within families, and this idea of a child who has also been conditioned to take care of a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. He understood that aspect of it as well. I mean, if there's one person that I genuinely admire and look up to in my life, it is my husband.
Yeah.
He has understood every single crazy thing that I've done. He has stood by my side no matter what. He's been there basically to help protect me from myself many times. You cannot ask for a better partner, a better husband, a better companion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's love.
I'm glad you
Very
found
much.
you deserve that as
Very much.
well. And
Yeah.
I just want to say that that role of a child taking care of a parent, it costs a child.
It does. It does. And emotionally, it ended up, I realized after when I started going to actual therapy, because I did not want to go back to therapy after the experience with conversion therapy. I did not want to go back to actual therapy. When I finally started doing so, one of the main approaches that I took in order to kind of deal with that was IFS therapy, internal family systems. That helped me to really break down all of my different parts, my different components, and being able to see how each part of me stepped up to protect me at one point or another.
That's right.
Fortunately, all of those parts are communicating. They're all in sync. It's all wonderful. So, but yes, I mean, the child was the one who was almost always present, who was almost always there to protect myself, to do my mom's bidding, to be her support, because my dad abandoned her and all that stuff. So there was that dynamic, there was that narrative that she needed somebody to look after her. And this is, remind you, again, this is the person who's super independent. I'm not going to play that traditional Mormon wife role. And yet, because she had her own abandonment issues from when she was a child, that dynamic passed on to me. And I did not want to feed into her narrative of being abandoned by her husband, being abandoned by other important people in her life. Why would I do that to her?
Yep.
Yeah.
So y'all moved here around 2012? Does that sound
2008,
right?
actually.
What?
2008.
2008.
Yeah. So,
and that's when you had to come out again to your mom, or
2010.
so you and your husband lived here 2 years near your mom and continued hiding your partnership from her.
Exactly. We tried to get our own place as fast as we could, which we did. And it would just, but my mom, she obviously knew, but just didn't want to both of us were avoiding the conversation.
It's so
honestly.
wild that you it has to be an organization is acting cult-like if you have to hide your spouse from your parent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That is absolutely 100% true.
So for 2 years, y'all live in Utah, hiding that you're together from your mom.
Mm-hmm,
And then you have to come out. Or did you get caught, or
No.
did you come out?
It's one of those situations where I finally am just like, no, I'm not going to hide him anymore.
Right.
No,
You hit a
I hit a wall.
point.
Exactly. And it was a time when, we oftentimes would take her out on the weekends to show she wasn't sitting at home by herself or whatever. My mom was very active. I mean, she had a very big yard. It was kind of the end for a long time as the envy of the neighborhood, because that was her therapy. Her plants, her flowers, her everything, that was her therapy. So she was always out there working. But just to kind of help her get out, we would take her out periodically. And one of these times we wanted to go out. She always insisted she had to be on the front, on the front seat. And one time it's just like, no, my husband's in the front seat. And she's just like, well, where am I going to sit? You're sitting in the back. And she just started to kind of go off. I'm like, okay, well, if you want to stay, that's fine. And so she's having this epic meltdown on the driveway, and we just go.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. We're not playing this game anymore. And just like the first time, lots of drama and everything else. And my mom my husband will not tell me what actually happened, but she apparently did some really horrible things to him. Really horrible things. He did some things to kind of annoy her too. For instance, when we were, again, we found ourselves in a situation where we were in between housing. We needed to stay with her again temporarily while we were, figuring out our housing situation. And so, he decided to get me a dog as a Christmas gift to annoy my mom, because she did not want a dog in the house. So it's like, okay, so he had his little ways of, it's like, fine.
Some passive aggressiveness.
There was some passive aggressiveness there. Yes, for sure. For sure. And he was upfront with me about the whole thing.
Yeah.
But so anyway, what's really funny is that when they first met each other, they adored each other, absolutely adored each other. Then, when we came out here and there was that really awful dynamic, my husband started to realize that there's a lot more layers to my mom than he realized.
And she knew him as a roommate or a friend.
Exactly.
Not as a husband.
And also, I don't know if I'm reading, tell me if I'm reading too much in, but it does sound like your role was as a child to kind of be the man of the house for her, as independent as she was. Your role was very much, which would make her your number one person.
Yep.
So then perhaps she could also feel competitive, or like she was being replaced, like someone else was more important to you. And that could elicit, I'm just saying.
You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it.
Emotions.
Some very strong emotions, and spot on. Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly what the dynamic was. So fast forward to, us, me coming, telling my mom what's going on and so forth. Again, we have several confrontations. I held my ground. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to live authentically. And so we did. And there was always some tension that was there. But eventually she just started to accept him as being part of our lives. And what's very interesting is that my mom ended up developing vascular dementia towards the end of her life, which kind of exacerbated many of the underlying psychological challenges that she had, which, of course, because of my personal dynamic with her, made it very, very challenging for me to deal with the dementia.
Yeah.
And it was my husband who actually stepped in to help her to deal with the worst of it.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was working at a nursing home, so he was exposed to it every day. So he had very quickly developed those skills, but it was always an innate part of him anyway.
Wow, that's special.
Yeah.
That's really special.
Yeah. So while I was kind of dealing with all the things that were coming up because that were all the stuff I kept inside I was dealing with that trauma.
Yeah. They're coming to the surface.
They're all starting to come to the surface through her period of her dementia and everything. He was the one who stepped up. Again, somebody who just embodies unconditional love. I mean, just a walking expression of love.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really something.
Yeah. He's very special. He's very, very special.
That reminds me of Carolyn Pearson taking care of her ex-husband, Jared, as he was dying of AIDS. Like someone who you could say hurt you, but you're there for them until the end.
Yeah. And that was the dynamic that I witnessed. And I was just so grateful. Yeah. I'm so grateful because I don't know how I would have endured that, honestly.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
So that kind of like closes that particular circle of the dynamic of me coming out a second time to my mom and having to deal with all of that for sure. And in the meantime, my dad is still kind of there in the background. He at this point is not doing so well. He had moved to Idaho Falls, and he was in Idaho Falls. He was staying in an assisted living facility there, and he met Eyring several times. And again, because I never come out to him, this is my good friend. Then one time when my dad called me up, it's like, oh, I met this wonderful woman. I think she'd be great for you and so forth. I'm like, okay, well, here we go. So I told my dad, I'm already in a relationship. And his response is, oh, really? I'm like, yes, you already know him. Wait, him? Yes. I said my husband's name, and he's like, wait, he's a man. I'm like, yes. And the issue is, and just what I expected, because by this point I had actually rebaptized my dad into the church, even though but years ago, maybe about 10 years before, he wanted me to rebaptize him. And even though I wasn't active, I agreed to do so.
Oh, so after being excommunicated, he wanted to rejoin?
Yes.
Wow. And you were the one
to rebaptize him.
Okay.
Yes.
Significant.
Very significant. So he, did the whole, after we hung up, about 20 minutes later, he calls up and it's just like, I'm going to call on you to repent. And so I have been building up to this conversation for my entire life, and I'm going to have it, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. And so I said, Dad, forgive me if I say this to you, and please don't take it the wrong way, but you have been absent in my entire life. You do not have the right. You do not have the right to call me to repentance when you were absent the whole time.
Yeah.
I love you. You are my father. I will be always grateful that you were the one who brought me into this world. I would not be here if it weren't for you.
Right.
But if, as an absent father, you do not have that right. So that was that. And then just a few weeks before he passed away, one of my last conversations with him, he said, say hi to Eyring for me.
Nice.
And that was his way of acknowledging.
That's your husband.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was his way of acknowledging him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything ended up very positively with my family, my parents. But then the journey continues because all of the trauma, everything that I kept buried.
Yeah.
All that compartmentalization.
All the compartmentalizing finally started to uncompartmentalize.
Yeah, that stuff
Right.
doesn't just disappear. It doesn't just dissolve.
It comes for you.
You have to unwire all that conditioning and trauma.
Exactly. I
Right?
did. Exactly. Because then what happened, because I didn't have anybody else in my life to fear of upsetting except for my husband.
Yeah, your parents are gone.
They're gone. So who's the next person on the list? Who's the next closest to me? It's my husband. So then I start living in fear of all of his reactions and everything else. And that just created a lot of tension between us. Because before he's always directed elsewhere.
Sure.
Yeah. And then in 2022, everything started to really bubble up. By the end of 2022, I was in pretty bad shape. And then, I was really unwell. Psychologically, I was really, really unwell. Then late January 2023, it all just came to a head. In the space of about 10 days, my dog passed away. I ended up having to quit my job because I was just in such bad shape.
Mm.
And Ivan and I temporarily separated.
Mm.
And that's 2023 is what I call my dark year of the soul.
Dark night of the soul, dark year of the soul.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I spent that year, I won't go into much detail about that year, except to say that I spent that year trying to figure myself out. I was on multiple road trips. And finally, at the end of that year, my husband and I both refer to it as I was on a trip. We don't refer to it as a time of separation or anything. I was just on a trip. We finally reunited the day after my mom's birthday, funny enough. December 29th of that year, we finally we reunited, and
2 years ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. 2 years ago, and that's when the real work of reconstructing my life really began. That's when I started to really finally understand, because everything that had come up was just so horrible. And I actually had watched your interview on the BITE model, actually.
With Stephen Hassan.
Exactly, Stephen Hassan.
Expert, yeah.
I even started to read his book. I'm like, it's a little too dry for me, but I got the essence out of it.
Yeah.
And really, it's just kind of helped me understand the dynamics that really went into what happened with me in my life. And
because you were under undue influence.
Yes.
Yeah.
By an organization that.
Yeah. Exactly. It was, yes, I could have chosen to walk away at any time, but I didn't think I really had that choice.
Yeah.
Again, that undue influence was like, I don't really have that choice. So I walked away in the best way I could, which was, okay, I'll still keep believing, but I'll stop going to church. I will, up to then, I still identified as Mormon. And so finally, when everything just like blew up, in metaphysical circles, I sometimes say, the universe will give you a nudge, then a tap, then a shove, and then finally we'll take a sledgehammer to your head. I just went nuclear. I just skipped all of it, and I just went nuclear. And so I started the work of reconstructing the two, CBT, IFS, internal family systems, and then the EMDR.
Yeah.
These are forms of therapy for those who don't know.
Exactly. So those are all forms of therapy, and the IFS therapy and the EMDR therapy were perhaps the two most effective. I really unpacked a lot of stuff. And what I found was so beautiful, particularly about the EMDR therapy, is because it really did help me disassociate so many of the traumatic experiences from my life,
right,
and be able to process things in a very, very healthy way.
Yeah.
Many of the fears that had once plagued me, they're not even issues anymore. The fears of, the needs to please, no, I'll stand, I'll be happy to help you out, but I will have my boundaries.
Yeah.
Because before there were no boundaries at all. So I'm able to speak up for myself. I'm able to have my boundaries. I'm able to say, this is me, take it or leave it. If you don't like it, well, okay, that's your problem. I'm good.
So the people pleaser got put in its place.
Yeah. I mean, they still have residue every once in a while that pops up.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like a part.
Yeah.
Of you.
Exactly. And it will always be a part of me. I now identify as a recovering Mormon.
Mhm.
Very much so, because I think I will be in recovery for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing. I don't harbor any sort of resentment or anger toward the institution. Or even though I see the harm that the institution does, I will stand up and I will speak up when I feel like it's really, really important to do so. And now sometimes I hear that there are criticisms from people, especially the Mormon apologists and some of the younger influencers nowadays. I hear this periodically, which is people can leave the church, but they can't leave the church alone. That's why I think that this particular podcast and these stories are so important, because it's not about leaving the church alone. It's not like we can't leave the church alone. I left the church alone a long time ago. But people need to understand and realize that these stories are critical to understanding that every person's spiritual journey is a deeply personal one. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. And just because somebody had this experience within the church doesn't mean that it is invalidating it, or that we're not leaving the church alone. No, I'm sharing the story now because hopefully there might be some lives that could potentially be saved from it. Hopefully there are some people who can acknowledge and realize that it'll open up a dialogue. It'll maybe, just maybe, somebody will say, okay, this was your journey. And that's what I'm speaking to, is my journey, my experience. Other people may have had beautiful and wonderful experiences, and yay them. Yay for them that they still feel that embracing love within the church and that particular cocoon. If it works for them, fantastic. But don't invalidate all these other stories just because this is what we lived.
Right.
This is what we lived.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I left the church alone, but the story still needs to be shared. It still needs to be told.
Yeah. I do think there is an aspect too that can come up around erasure.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of like, as changes are made, or whether it be around something like garments or temple things, as changes are made, that oftentimes, there's history though.
Yeah.
And there are people who lived that history.
Yes.
And so part of the power of your story is actually remembering where we've been.
Mm-hmm.
And you being able to say, this is real. This happened.
Yeah.
I am real. And that is so important. And it's so important to us that you're here, and for us to be able to hear and say, you're real. Your story is real to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And I don't know how this is for you, but nowadays the church doesn't openly encourage conversion or reparative therapy.
Yeah.
The church doesn't seem to openly encourage mixed orientation marriages.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to openly promote celibacy. And it doesn't even anymore publicly hold the position that it's a choice to be gay, or even a sin to experience feelings of same-sex attraction.
Yeah.
The church has retreated from all those positions it held for decades.
Yeah.
And the only and it's even almost proud to say we love gay people.
Yeah.
The only thing it would say is gay people have to live the same way as straight people. They can't have sex unless they're legally and lawfully married to a person of the opposite sex. Other than that, it would appear on the surface that the church loves and supports gay people.
Yeah. And, it's window dressing. Mormon culture, especially Utah Mormon culture, is all about appearances. No, it's all about it's like, oh, it's like the perfect, the perfect picture of the perfect family, and it's all about keeping up appearances and the whitewashing, the window dressing, the pretty flowers, the white picket fence, all of that. And so, yes, of course, the church is going to want to put up, the institution, because I do separate the people of the church from the institution itself. The institution is going to want to do the same thing, which everybody else does here, which is keep up appearances, put up a few, positive statements, nice sounding statements, probably approved by, Kurt and McConkie, more than likely, and just to make them seem as neutral and as affirming as possible, while under the surface, all of the ugliness remains. If they were truly affirming of committed couples, then why not amend the proclamation to the family? Because guess what? My husband came with 2 kids who have become my own sons. I have 6 grandkids now that I never, ever thought that I would actually be able to have. I never imagined that for myself, and yet they are such an integral part of my life. My oldest grandson, the first word I ever heard him say was actually my name. To have as normal a life as possible. The only thing that isn't quote unquote normal about it is the fact that I am married to a man. But I have my sons. They're my stepsons, but they are my sons. In my heart, they are my sons. My grandkids, I am their grandfather. That is as normal a life as you can get. So, yeah.
Tell us about your marriage, because, marriage wasn't actually legalized in the United States until 2015 with Obergefell.
Right. So even after that particular decision, in fact, several of my friends outside of Utah, when that decision came down, they're like, oh my gosh, congratulations. Are you going to get married? And my husband talked about it. And we know that 3-week rush to go get married and everything.
Utah.
Exactly. Here in Utah.
Yeah.
We're like, let's wait, because we both felt very strongly that it needs to be a settled question. So when the decision finally came down from the Supreme Court, that's when we decided that, yes, we would finally do it. But we were in no rush to get married or anything. We just were like, it's for all intents and purposes, you're married. In fact, in Latin culture, it's not uncommon for unmarried couples to just say that this is my wife, this is my husband.
Y'all have been together for 15 years at that point, if I'm counting right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. So yeah, we've been together for quite a long time, and we were committed. It was a beautiful marriage. As with any married couple, you have your differences of opinion. We are opposites definitely attract, because we have very opposite personalities, and yet we complement each other so well. We never get tired of being with each other. We worked together up in Park City for the past 2 years. After I came back from my dark year of the soul, we went to work together, and it was just amazing and wonderful to be able to share that time. We love our road trips. We do not like to spend time away from each other, honestly. It is the most wonderful, rewarding, beautiful relationship I could have ever imagined for myself.
Yeah.
So happy.
And that is for somebody who has endured a lot, because I put him through so much.
So were y'all formally married? And if so, when and where?
We were here in Salt Lake County, just up at the courthouse. It was just very simple. We only had 2 friends come by and do act as witnesses. But other than that, we didn't make a big deal of it or anything. That's not when we actually celebrate our anniversary at all. It's just the day that we met is our anniversary.
Celebrate.
Exactly.
But still, that ceremony, that decision, it was just for you.
It was just for us.
Yeah.
And what year? Just because I'm a nerd. Around what year?
2 years ago, actually.
Okay. So 2023.
Yeah, that's when we formally, legally.
So after your vacation, after your trip, you got married.
Yep.
That's nice. That's nice.
Exactly.
I like that a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
And were you at all surprised when the Supreme Court recently revisited Obergefell and decided not to strike it down?
I was surprised.
Were you happy?
I was very happy. I was happy that Congress, in spite of its all the current dysfunction, passed something to say, okay, this is now law of the land, because obviously with all the other craziness that's going on right now, it's like, well, no, Congress, thank goodness Congress came through for us.
Or Supreme Court. Was Supreme Court that denied to take the
correct
to revisit? Okay.
Correct.
I don't mean to correct you. Okay. And then you've already alluded to this, but I want to shine a light on it for just 1 second.
Yeah.
It's one thing to leave the church. It's another thing to process your faith deconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
And someone can go decades as what they consider to be a Jack Mormon or an inactive Mormon or just a Mormon who's not going to church. But that's different than unwinding the beliefs about God and Jesus and the atonement and the Book of Mormon and Joseph Smith and the restoration and priesthood and the modern day prophet and all that.
Yeah.
So when, it sounds like that happened in the past 2 years.
Pretty much. Yeah. So
how did you start and follow that deconstruction process? Just because I think it's important.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important. I'm glad that you touched on that, because my deconstruction process, I think, was a very unusual and strange path. It wasn't like there were a bunch of things that were up on the shelf and the shelf finally broke. No, there were always things that I just knew was like, yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, even when I was very active in the church, I knew that, the word of wisdom came about because Emma Smith had complained about all the smoking, drinking, and spitting on the floors and everything. So I knew that, and I was okay with that. There were other things that, again, I'm just like, yeah, probably not, but I can still continue to believe. The deconstruction really started when I started to learn a lot about, all of the other. Basically, I did follow a lot of the early the series that you did on the whole series of
the LDS
discussions, exactly,
where we examine Mormon Church truth claims.
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, now this is all starting to make sense from my perspective. Why there are just questions that are in my mind. Why this doesn't really make a lot of sense.
So the treasure digging, the first vision stuff,
all of that,
Stone in the Hat, the Book of Mormon translation.
Yeah.
Joseph's polygamy, those types of things.
Exactly. But by that point, I had pretty much already stopped believing a lot of just the church stuff, because my spiritual journey. So I continue to have that deeply affirming, beautiful connection with the divine.
You write a metaphysical approach to spirituality.
Yes.
What is that? So
for me, I kind of, really kind of went off in like a new age direction for a while. So, just like referring to the universe. I couldn't say God at all. For a long time, it's just like, no God. So for me, it was more like a very affirming spiritual approach. There's the universe. There's the, source energy, whatever it is. That to me kind of helped me process things. But now I've kind of balanced out again that it's the metaphysical approach is more along the lines of understanding that where I'm responsible for every decision that I make, and there's consequences for sure. But there is no angry God, standing out there waiting to zap me at any moment. All that there is, as far as my spirituality is concerned, is there's nothing but incredible love, unconditional love for every single one of us, and that one's relationship with the divine is a deeply personal journey. And that to try to say to everybody, oh no, you have to do this, you can't do this, to prescribe it, to me is more along the lines of, I need you to feel better so that I need you to do this so that I can feel better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you do you, I do me, we're going to get along just great. So that's kind of how I feel now. A lot of Eastern, philosophies as well.
What do you mean by that?
So, for instance, a lot of Buddhist, Buddhist philosophies, mindfulness, so forth.
Secular Buddhism.
Yeah, secular Buddhism, exactly.
So meditation.
Yep.
Holding stories and labels and thoughts loosely. contact with the present moment.
Impermanence, all that
Impermanence.
stuff. Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, impermanence is a big one.
Are there
Yep.
books or podcasts that were helpful there for you?
Actually, yeah. The Secular Buddhism
Okay,
podcast.
with
right?
Noah Rasheta.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
He's
listened
a
to
former
that.
listener of Mormon Stories. I don't know if you know that.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I actually saw that episode.
Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah.
what got me turned on
Got
to
it.
his
That's
podcast.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was part of it. There was, some books that I read as well, mostly from kind of like in the personal development realm,
Mhm.
that again kind of aligned with my personal version of spirituality that I was constructing. And so it's just basically bits and pieces from here and there, from whatever seems to work for me, whatever seems to resonate with me, whatever lights me up inside is what I incorporate. And so for me, what it boils down to is my path is listen to my heart, do what brings me the greatest joy. Because if I do that, then I will be doing my greatest good. I will be able to have the best impact I can because I am approaching this from a place of absolute joy and excitement.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
And what about self-acceptance and brokenness?
still a journey for sure. But I would say that much further along, I can accept myself. I can love myself, even though it's difficult for me to say at times. I do love myself. I can see myself as being whole and complete. So yes, that is genuine and authentic, and I don't need to seek that outside validation anymore.
And you write in your outline, I'm not broken and I never was broken.
Yeah.
Is that
That's very much where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I can see I never was broken. All this
That's
narrative, you need to be repaired. All of those things just is fallen by the wayside. I look at it as these were other broken people who were trying to feel good about, they were coming from a place of wanting to help. Okay, I get it. I understand. But in the process of wanting to help, they did so much harm.
Mhm.
So much harm.
Mhm.
I understand that, and I can forgive that. Because for me, if I don't forgive and if I don't reach a place of understanding, it's the way I look at it is I'm taking the poison, but I'm expecting the other person to die, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I can forgive. That doesn't mean that I'm going to let go of any anger that I might have harbored. That doesn't mean I'm not going to have boundaries. I'm like, no, that door is closed permanently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there have been, people and situations that I've had to completely close the door, seal it off. It's like, no more. I'm not going to be, subject myself to any sort of abuse, emotional, physical, or otherwise. So yeah.
And what about your relationship with your brother and your extended Mormon family?
The Hunters, I don't interact with the extended Mormon family as frequently as I would like. But I can say that the Hunters represent what the church could potentially be. They've always accepted me, no matter what. They've accepted Ivan. In fact, I remember when my dad passed away and we were there in Idaho Falls for his funeral, when we were having the portion of people coming by to pay their respects to view and so forth. One of my cousins, she came up to Ivan and she gave him a big hug and she's like, I'm so happy that you're in Appio's life. I'm so grateful for you and I'm so happy you're in his life.
Is a Mormon cousin.
Is a Mormon cousin.
In Idaho. I love it.
Mhm.
Not too far away from BYU, Idaho.
Mhm.
All of my family up there. All of my family in Eastern Idaho. All of the Hunters. They are beautiful examples of love and compassion. They really can't. They are examples of the potential the church has they've never reached. And my brother, again, supportive, amazing, wonderful. I could not ask for a better brother.
Mm.
He's still in the church?
Still is.
Wow.
Yep.
See, that's the thing. If I were to say, has the Mormon church gotten better? The Mormon people have gotten better on LGBT issues between 30, 40 years ago and today. It's just undeniable, right?
Yeah.
And as go the members, so goes the church. Like the church will keep getting better on this issue because more and more members are becoming healthy on this issue.
Yes, they are. They are. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally would. I mean, there was a time when I said, you know what, I could see myself being Mormon again and being active in the church again if this, were completely embraced and accepted and so forth. But then I look at it a little bit further as I've been on my spiritual journey. I realize it's like, no, there's still too many. There's too many constrictions.
Yeah. Yep. I hear that.
Yeah, but to see a healthier church, heck yeah.
Yeah,
that would be amazing and wonderful.
Yeah.
And yes, it could do so much good.
Yeah.
But just for me personally, this is the only path. No, there's every path. I like the Gnostic approach. Your relationship is with God, no one else.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, I think what happened was the internet forced the church to fix its broken messaging around LGBT people. And by the church fixing its broken, by the church acquiescing to the internet and fixing its broken messaging around LGBTQ people, that allowed the members to be more affirming and supportive of LGBTQ people.
Yes. Yeah. I 100% agree with that, because before the messaging was improved, there was a lot of just black and white thinking.
Yeah.
And the only people who did accept who accepted their children, who were affirming towards LGBTQ people, were those who decided that their relationship with their children was more important than the church's dogma and doctrine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And now people who care about the church more than their children can also love their children.
Yes. I mean, what's there not to celebrate?
So this has been so wonderful. I'll just say really quickly, one of the reasons we picked you and I picked you, in addition to the fact that you just did a lovely application and a lovely audition video, was that because obviously when I dropped into the LGBT stuff in the 2000s and then did my PhD research, I'm thinking about these evergreen, Mormons of the 80s and 90s, all through the 2000s and 2010s. But in some sense, so many of them were, of course, sort of lost boys, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They washed out of the church in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And they weren't sticking around to watch or listen to Mormon-themed podcasts.
And some didn't make it.
Well, a lot didn't make it, right?
Didn't make it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. And that's totally true. So in some sense, I'm giving a decade or more of my life to try to improve things that harmed your people of your generation and previous ones without having really talked to or met many of you, right?
Right.
And so when you apply, I'm like, whoa, Appio, like he knew Nicolosi. He, was at the Evergreen Conferences. Like, we got to bring this guy back and have him tell a story. Well, what the freak is he doing listening to Mormon stories? Like, these dudes don't watch or listen to Mormon stories. They moved on or passed away. So anyway, that's a long way of saying I'm so delighted that one of you, I say you, circled back to Mormon stories. It just makes me so happy.
Thank you.
And then, so it's just a pleasure to hear the story from someone who lived it, because my knowledge of it was mostly academic or historical. So that's lovely. But then also, Margie and I had this idea of ending all Mormon Stories episodes with a list of questions. And one of the questions is, name a book or a podcast or a TV show that you've enjoyed lately. And the first one on your list was Mormon Stories.
Right.
So that makes me super happy. What else?
That did not come into the selection process. To be clear,
it brought us together.
It just brought us joy.
Right.
Yeah, but it brought us together. So aside from Mormon Stories, what podcasts have been meaningful to you?
So there's one that I've been listening to recently. It's called Next Level Soul. And it just kind of encompasses the entire breadth of the whole human experience and spirituality in general. And I just really kind of gotten into it and enjoyed it a lot, particularly interviews with near-death experiencers. It's really fascinating to see how similar those stories really are. So that's been fun. As far as a book that I'm reading, I started rereading the entire Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. When they came out with a series on Amazon, I'm like, ooh, that reminds me. I think I want to go back and start rereading the series. It's been kind of like here and there, working my way through it, but enjoying it. And then as far as TV show,
you're a UFO guy.
I'm totally a UFO guy.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh my gosh.
I've never seen it, but
I've gotten so sucked into it. It's fascinating.
And it's got a Utah tie. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that the one their neighbor?
Yes, that's the one Steve talks about.
Yeah.
But also Grace and her boyfriend came out, it's a big thing. Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh yeah. It's fascinating. Absolutely
it's
fascinating.
Like 7 or 8 seasons now.
Yeah, exactly. I've also enjoyed watching Ancient Aliens, honestly, but not because it's like I really believe all of that stuff. It's more along the lines of they ask really fascinating questions about how is it that all these ancient cultures have all these similar things all at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, legit.
So have you been to Skinwalker Ranch? Have you taken the tour?
I have not.
It's just like a couple hours drive. What are you doing?
I know, exactly. Maybe I can wave as I'm heading on over to Vernal because my husband wants to actually go see Dinosaur National Monument. So I'm like, okay, we'll wave on our way past or something.
I think you've answered the question of someone you admire. It would be
my husband.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And then things lighting you up lately.
Well, I can't remember what I answered.
You put a new job.
Right. Yes. A new job. I'm going to Peru in 3 days. And then
what a way to celebrate your Mormon Stories interview.
Right. Exactly.
I know. I was teasing him. I was like, do the Mormon Stories interview and then leave the country.
Some go to Disneyland, you go to Peru.
Go to Disneyland. No, it's Peru. Exactly. So I've been down there 3 times now. This will be our 4th trip down there together.
Oh, lovely.
It's wonderful to have somebody from the country to be able to show me around and everything. The food is, oh my gosh, it's amazing. But the first trip down there, he surprised me with a trip to see the Nazca lines. That was amazing because that had always been on my bucket list of places to go see were the Nazca lines. And then the following year for my birthday, he surprised me with another trip to Machu Picchu. We're both very nerdy when it comes to archaeological stuff. So Peru is like the place to go for a lot of, at least in the Americas, it's Mexico or Peru. It's one of those two. So, just love it. We've seen a lot of different places down there and gone to a lot of, it's so fun. So this time around, it's just going to be hanging out with family.
Okay. And here's the most important question of all.
Yes.
Have you had a pisco sour?
I have. I have.
We have friends who went to...
We have watched people enjoy pisco sours.
We've never had that, but we have friends who went to Peru and they came back. That's all they could talk about is pisco sours.
We had some book club.
They're so good.
Beverages.
They flatten people, by the way.
They will. I don't drink, but I'm not afraid of, testing something or try something out.
Well, if you had a good pisco sour, you drink, or at least you have tried
exactly. So not often. Let's put it that way.
It's an alcoholic beverage for those who don't know.
Yeah, anyway. And yes, it's very good.
All right. Well, Appio Hunter, what an important and delightful Mormon story. Would you agree, Margie?
Yes. Yeah. So grateful for you.
And we did it in 3 hours.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and
welcome.
For sharing your story. This is an important part of history. And the only other thing I'll say is that whether it's Ty Mansfield or Josh and Lolly Weed or David Matheson. Like, the church has and continues to parade poster boys and poster women for whatever LGBTQ / lifestyle it wants.
Yeah.
And what they never do is they'll use these poster men for their purposes, but then once they leave the church, they never go back to all the people who were influenced by those poster boys and say, hey, I know we use these people to advocate a lifestyle that we wanted to promote, but guess what? They've all left the church or admit now that the lifestyles we were advocating didn't work.
Yeah.
And so for me, maybe the most important final message is, Mormon Church, please look at the literal graveyard of poster boys and poster women for LGBT lifestyles that you've paraded across generations without owning up to and taking responsibility for the tens of thousands of lives and families that have been harmed by your usage of these poster boys and poster women. So please someday be accountable for what you've done and find a new way without, commandeering the lives of your vulnerable members like Appio.
Yeah. Thank you. Amen to that.
Right?
Yeah. For sure.
There's got to be a new way.
Yeah, there has to be. And I agree. I can see it eventually happening. And I think that the church will evolve away from being a place of strict dogma. I hope that it will serve the community in the way that everybody hopes that it will. And there are those who find the spiritual component comforting, and fantastic. That's wonderful. But at the end of the day, I think honesty, integrity, accountability, which are all things I learned from the church, that the institution itself doesn't practice, sadly. I too hope that someday it will be that. And all they need to do is just look at the members to see that in motion and being lived day to day.
Love it.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Well,
thanks again, Appio.
Thank you.
Thanks, Margie.
Yeah.
And thanks to all of you for joining us today on Mormon Stories. Please subscribe to this channel. Please like the episode. Please share it with friends and family. We love your comments on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you consume this content. You can also follow us on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. We could not do this episode or these episodes without our donors. We don't do ads. We don't do product placement. We do ads, but we don't do like commercial sponsorships. So we 80+% of our revenue is just the generous voluntary donations of our donors. It's giving time. It's Christmas, Thanksgiving time. If you're not if you do donate to Mormon Stories, the Open Stories Foundation, thank you. We couldn't do it without you. If you don't donate, we lose dozens of monthly donors every month. So what you can do if you value this content and want to see it continue is to go to mormonstories.org or mormonstories.org/donate. Click on the donate button, become a monthly donor, and we'll continue providing this content for as long as we have your support. We're super grateful to Julia and Brooklyn, along with Margie, who do so much work behind the scenes to make all this possible. So thanks to them as well. Thanks to you, our viewers and listeners. Email us with feedback at mormonstories@gmail.com. And if you want to apply, like Appio, to be on Mormon Stories, we are always looking for new applicants. Margie and I review the applications every week. We're looking for great storytellers with great stories who really understand the Mormon Stories library and understand how the content will be useful, or their stories will be useful to our audience today. So if you think you would have a story to tell that would be good for our audience, go to mormonstories.org/apply, fill out the application form. The most important part is a 3-minute video where you make your case, and we'll review it. And if we feel like it's a good fit, we will contact you. We'll also let you know, we'll do our best to let you know if we're not ready to have you tell your story at this time. But and we're sorry we can't take everyone who applies. We get over 1,000 applicants each year for basically 50 slots.
Wow.
So I don't know, is that 1 out of 20? Something like that.
Yeah.
We can't accept everyone, but we're always going to be pushing for the best applications we can find. So please apply. Be good to each other, be kind to each other, be bridge builders and peacemakers. And we'll see you all again soon on another episode of Mormon Stories Podcast. Take care, everybody.
See ya.